My entitled older sister is absolutely disgusting and does nothing to maintain her personal hygiene. And after her bedroom became a pigsty, she decided to move into my bedroom while I was at college simply because she refuses to clean up her own bedroom, leaving me in such a state that I'm honestly disgusted and incredibly shocked, because right now I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so the issues that I've been having with my family have been ongoing for almost a decade, and this really might be my breaking point. Close to 3 years ago, my mother moved into her new rented house. After her and my dad split, she was the occupier of the old house, but my dad's name was on the mortgage and they decided to sell it and split what remained. Now, my mom lives in a council house with my two siblings, one older sister and one younger sister. Even since the move, things have been tense and disastrous. My family has an issue with being clean, stemming from a pet buying obsession, reinforced laziness, and a complete disregard for personal hygiene. I often had to carry the burden of keeping most of the house clean, except for people's bedrooms. I cleaned the bathroom, the kitchen, the hallways, and the living room, as well as my bedroom for as long as I still live there. Several incidents with my mother meant I began spending less and less time there, with my dad and my grandparents thankfully being really accommodating. And currently, I'm away at university, but still I legally live there at my mother's house. Now it's my Easter break, and I decided to first stay at my dad's before visiting my mom's. Now, it's important to note that it is completely normal for me to just show up sometimes. Scheduling can be weird, and I have my own house keys and bedroom, so it was never an issue. Well, that is, except for this Easter. I had learned last night, the night before I was set to show up, that my older sister had now moved into my bedroom, a bedroom which I had stayed in since moving in, and that I had paid for all the furniture and even decorated for. And this was for a month, all without being asked or even notified. Now, you might be wondering, what was the reason behind this? Well, my older sister's bedroom is a tip. She still was at university while my mother moved house, but now she is back at home. At first, she was given a pop-up bed to sleep on, with plans to buy her an actual one for her bedroom, provided that room was to be made for it. Well, her bedroom is now a nightmare, partially self-imposed and partially imposed upon her. Broken furniture, bags of rubbish, dirty clothing, and dishes everywhere. Classic nightmare scenario for me. It is a year's worth of mess without any major attempt at cleaning, to where now she can't even use her pop-up bed, although she stopped using it anyways by her own choosing. She has for the past year been in her room for the day and then went to sleep in the living room on the sofa at night. And this is also in a foul and disgusting state due to pests, but it's no longer my domain, so it's like whatever. I have repeatedly offered to help clean out her room and to get it into a livable state, going so far as to offer to hire a skip so the entire household can get rid of the junk and bin bags, which are genuinely piled up at this point. But she said it was fine and that it would be sorted. Now, I had before been asked whether she could temporarily inhabit my bedroom, considering I wasn't there most of the time, and my room was in a much nicer condition. Under normal circumstances, I might have, but my sister literally doesn't shower. She doesn't clean up rubbish, she leaves moldy food around for weeks or even months, and she cannot be trusted to not damage things. I made my discomfort with her taking my bedroom very clear, especially when asked about it. And again, I have repeatedly offered to help her sort out her living space so that it can be tidy and she can just have a normal space. But no, apparently that wasn't good enough, and clearly my bedroom should be given up for her sake. Now, in my eyes, this is entitled by itself, but the tipping point for me was when she replied to my messages about not being told that she had moved into my bedroom by complaining that I hadn't informed my family ahead of time that I would be coming home for Easter, which is, by the way, a thing that I have never had to do before, nor had I ever even been asked to do so before, which is only an issue because she took my bedroom without permission. Now, the situation might be being improved, with my mother only sleeping at her house half the time anyways, and she's offered up her bedroom for the weekend, but this incident has left me pretty hurt and really distrustful. My space can no longer be trusted to be my space. I can't even count on being told my room was being slept in, and it's just left me pretty emotionally exhausted. Ultimately, I think it should have been my call to let her stay in my room or not, but at the bare minimum, I should have been told about it and have been given time to sort out the rest of my stuff should I want it removed from the room itself. It especially shouldn't be painted as me being in the wrong for daring to be annoyed that my room was taken without my permission, simply because I didn't tell them I intended to visit without enough notice. What should I do? Oh my gosh, I would be so pissed off. This is honestly so infuriating. For starters, you literally pay for the room. You pay for all the furniture, you're the reason that place looks actually nice, even somewhat, and it quite literally is your space. So for anybody to try and come in and be like, oh, we're taking over because my place is a mess, and yours is the only clean place in the house. Like, if that's not proof enough that they are the problem, then I just don't know what is. Seriously, they're going about this acting like you're at fault all because you didn't say, oh, I'm coming home by the way. I sure hope my stuff isn't taken over. Like what? What are you talking about? I pay for this room. This is mine. You can't just take it, dude. So yeah, your older sister is completely out of line and your mom's out of line for allowing this to happen because that space is yours, especially since you paid for it. And the fact that anybody's disrespecting that, in my opinion, is absolutely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An idiotic company keeps calling me at all hours of the day, wanting to contact me about their stupid business. But despite the fact that I signed myself up for the do not call list, these people literally refuse to listen, forcing me to get some petty revenge in a way that I'm sure they were never expecting. Here's what happened. So back in the mid-2000s, my family and I lived in West Michigan. I had signed up for the do not call list, and it had been generally successful. Even with this, a local home renovation company started calling my home landline. Every time they called, we would tell them we were not interested and to please remove us from their call list. But still, we got calls from them. Fast forward about 6 months to a weekend where my father and I were installing some fencing. It's about 9 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, and we walk out the front door and go to the back of the house. When we walk out of the house, I notice a 20-something-year-old in khakis and a golf shirt walking down the sidewalk, but I didn't think anything about it. As Dad and I are getting our tools together in the garage on the back of the backyard, this guy walks up to us, and yes, he walked through the yard uninvited and tries to make small talk and introduces himself as a sales schmuck from the previously mentioned company. He says to me, anything I can help you guys with today? And we say, sure, grab a bag of red mixed concrete and follow me. And no surprise, but he declined, so I told him in a polite way to go away. As this of course irritated me, later that day I looked up the company online and I found out the name of their head of marketing. I reached out to him on Monday and explained that I didn't appreciate them continuing to call me, and I most definitely didn't appreciate his sales schmuck wandering around my yard. And the best part is, I got lots of apologies once he realized I was serious. After that call, I got 1 or 2 more calls from them before it stopped completely, and most likely the reason they stopped was because each time they called us, I called him and I read him the riot act, making it very clear that I don't want them calling me. Oh man, this is hilarious because my god, I think we've all been there. Some stupid company that you want nothing to do with is not getting the picture. They don't understand that no, you don't want to deal with them, and it's super frustrating that they're not listening. They even had somebody showing up to your house, like come on, that is so annoying. So honestly, I think the fact that you're calling them directly and calling up the person in charge of marketing, like that is brilliant. That probably really got it through to them that no, you're not interested, because their behavior was super inappropriate and I don't blame you for getting pissed off. I was stripped of my manager position at my job, all because I was in the hospital for 2 months, resulting in my company suffering as I maliciously complied and refused to do any of my former manager duties. Here's what happened. Okay, so I was a manager of a programming department. I initially had 5 programmers reporting to me, and I was able to spend half of my time programming and my other half managing. I had always gotten exceeds or far exceeds expectations on my annual reviews. About 10 years later, my team had 25 people, and I was spending less and less time programming. Fast forward a few years later, and I missed 2 months during the year for a surgery and hospital stay, and in my annual review, my boss, who knew nothing about programming, told me that I was not doing a good job, and the programming department was missing deliverable dates, which is probably because I was in the hospital. They wanted me to go back to just programming, and it was there that I was stripped of my manager title, and I only focused on programming. And while I was pissed off, I told him that I can do that. I told my former staff what had happened and told them to direct all questions to my boss, who knew 0 things about programming. He was overwhelmed, and soon senior management figured out that my boss was the problem and not me. They then canned him and replaced him with the vice president of programming in the United Kingdom, and she was great since she started as a programmer and was an excellent boss in general. Since I was now just a programmer, all of the managers were in the United Kingdom, and I told my former staff to direct all questions to their new boss in the United Kingdom. Since there was a 6-hour time difference and we only overlapped 2 or 3 hours each day, that made getting questions answered in a timely fashion quite difficult. In the meantime, my health wasn't the best, and my doctor told me I should work maybe 4 days a week, or at most 32 hours of work a week, so that my health wouldn't continue to suffer. Since my employer was a strict 40-hour work week company, I looked for another job and got 8 job offers in about a month, and I was ready to resign. Finally, after a few months, my new boss asked me to be a manager again because of the time difference between the United States and the United Kingdom, and because I have the most experience as a programmer in the company. Well, instead, I gave her my resignation and I explained why. She then asked me what it would take to get me to stay, and I told her that I wanted a 10% raise and that I wanted to work 4 days a week at 32 hours max. I then gave her 24 hours to respond, and surprisingly, she spoke to the higher-ups and finally came back the next day and agreed. Wow, what a twist. Like, seriously, I did not expect that. I was expecting them to be like, oh no, we can't pay you that much, and then like turn around and treat you like garbage. Like, I really didn't expect that to work out. Like, that really is amazing. So good for you for showing these people exactly why they're so stupid, while also pretty much showing that, yeah, you're super valuable. Because if they had just allowed you to do your job, despite your obvious health problems, this all could have been taken care of without half the headache. Am I the jerk for kicking my guests out of my house 11 hours before their flight just so I can ensure that my day off is actually meant for a day of rest? Because right now they're calling me selfish, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my friend and his wife have made plans to visit us this summer for a weekend stay. The flight is 2 hours, so not really a long journey for them. We have our home professionally cleaned regularly, and we go all in to be good hosts to our guests. However, with any good thing, some people try to take advantage. I usually will take an extra day from work after guests leave to get rest, or even tidy up the house just a little bit. It's just a peaceful time for me to return to the normalcy of our household after being in host mode. Before my friend booked his flight, my husband let it slip that I will not be working the Monday after my friends stay with us. Well, the next thing I know, my friend tells me that they will be flying out on a red-eye the Monday that I took off for rest. This means they will arrive early Friday morning and leave late Monday night. To that, I responded that I will be taking them to the airport as early as 8 o'clock Monday morning so I can have my day of rest like I planned. My friend tells me that he doesn't understand why they can't just hang out at our place or have us show them around town more that Monday since they have a late flight. But I explained to them that that day off is for me to rest, not to continue to be their host. I told them that they are more than welcome to leave their luggage here if they want to go explore on their own, but we will not be hosting them or playing tour guide after Monday morning. He goes on to admit that it was cheaper for him to book the later flight on Monday, and that it's not a big deal for him and his wife to just hang out at my house all day until it's time for them to fly out. Keep in mind that I will have to take them to the airport or pay for rideshare because he refuses to pay. I will also have to feed them. I told him that they are welcome to visit and stay with us, but staying at our house all day Monday is not an option, and he needs to make other arrangements. He's now accusing me of being a horrible friend, and his wife is saying that we're the jerks. So honestly, am I at fault here? Because right now I'm really frustrated. Oh man, this is really stupid because no, you are definitely not the jerk. You literally just said, hey, you can't stay Monday. I'm sorry, but it's not happening. I'm gonna take you to the airport. You're gonna figure something out because that day really is for you to rest. And if they were good friends, they would absolutely understand. The fact that they want to try and sit there and argue with you and be like, oh, come on, we could just hang out at your house. This isn't that big of a deal. And it's like, yeah, it is a big deal. You're literally intruding on my life and I don't want that. So no, you're not the jerk. This is really dumb in my opinion. And the fact that they're trying to guilt trip you about this, in my opinion, is incredibly toxic. My father's behavior towards my boyfriend is disgusting, as he literally has implied he would take him out if he ever met him. And right now I'm worried about the safety of my boyfriend, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 17-year-old female and I'm turning 18 in a few months, and I also graduated high school. I met a boy this year and we started dating, and it's been great. Nothing explicit or weird. We genuinely have fun and enjoy each other's company. Soon, real life is about to hit us and we plan to fight for this relationship. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Why do all of this for a high school relationship? It's just gonna end anyways. Well, I feel like my father also feels that same way. So truly, this is nothing new that I'm hearing. My father has always been in my life, always provided for me, always taught me wrong from right, but he's also been the first man in my life to show me disappointment, mistreatment, insecurity, narcissism, and over self-esteem and entitlement to the T. My father is a man who is very full of himself. He hates people, he looks down on the people around him as if he's a god, speaks highly of himself at all times, plays overly too much, invades privacy, and he's very in his own head about everything. I fear that's also where I get some of my mental illness from, because I'm so much like him, and I unfortunately realized it after my mother complained to me about my responses and behavior over the years. All my life, my father has told me about men, and even said that if one of them ever came into my life, he would take them out, if you know what I mean. Or he would say he would do horrible things to him if there ever was a him in my life. I recently told my parents separately that I was dating this boy, my mom first and then my dad. My mother was upset that I didn't say anything sooner, which I then went to my dad and he seemed okay with it, but it was the little stuff he said after the conversation. My father has brought up conversation in regards to the guy I'm dating that were intimidating and harsh on him for just being a man around me. My father has even made comments on his race, trying to be funny. I cannot trust my father with meeting him. Many people don't like my father, especially friends of mine, knowing the things he's done or said, and I don't feel comfortable uncomfortable and I'm afraid he's going to scare the guy away, which is what I don't want. I'm growing to love this boy, and I don't want to sound like I'm being some hopeless romantic of young love, but we both are putting our hands in to stay together after graduating. I don't want to cut my father off because he's always been there for me, but I feel as if I should keep most of my personal life business like dating to myself, all because of his behavior. I just don't want him to invade and ruin this for me, because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Oh man, if I was in your shoes, I would be warning my boyfriend immediately. I would tell him, hey, my dad is a little insane and he might try to hurt you. And that is absolutely not okay. Like seriously, that is some scary stuff. So yeah, the way your dad is acting is super creepy and in my opinion, absolutely unacceptable. An entitled, obnoxious employee tries to cut a customer in front of us in line, despite the fact that we were literally almost done with the guy we were working with, leaving me scratching my head and realizing that that guy was being super rude and entitled. Here's what happened. So my husband and I recently did a home improvement project. We shopped at a local big box store for lumber and other supplies, and the store will cut the lumber and plywood for you, and we had about 5 cuts we needed, all very different, so it had to be done one piece at a time. We waited in line behind a few people also having cuts done, and this was no problem. It is the system, and we waited patiently for our turn. When the employee helping us was on our 3rd cut, an older man came up and began waiting. They had one 2x4 that needed cut. They were patiently waiting, and one of them went to grab some other stuff and left the lady there in line behind us. Another staff member came up to the lady and spoke with her and then yelled out to the employee, who we will call Keith for the sake of the story, by saying, hey Keith, this lady has one simple cut I need to do. Well, Keith didn't hear him because he had earplugs in and the saw was really loud, and he was on our 4th cut. So the employee yelled out again, just one fast cut, and Keith had to turn off the machine, take out his earplugs and say, what? The other employee then said it again, and Keith was grabbing our last board to cut, and I politely said to the other employee, well, we only have one more cut to do, we'll be done really quickly. After I said this, the other employee almost rolled his eyes, but caught himself and just said okay. And you know what? I thought it was so strange that he thought we should stop and just let him go ahead. They were fine waiting, and she and I even chatted a bit when the employee kind of stomped away. We had waited our turn as everyone has to, and it was no problem. You get in line when you get there regardless of what anyone else is doing, at least that's what I thought. My husband said the other employee was trying to go on lunch, and that may be why. But regardless, I thought it was super rude and incredibly entitled. Yeah, that's really weird to have some other employee at this big box store come up and be like, wait a second, you guys are in line, but let's ignore that line real quick. It makes me wonder if maybe he knew this person in line or something like that, and like he was trying to like pull some strings or something along those lines. I don't know. It just seems weird because you guys were almost done, and the person behind you was maybe like a minute away from getting this done. So for him to get all pissy about it just really doesn't make any sense to me. And in my opinion, he was completely out of line. I'm convinced that my girlfriend may be cheating on me, because after I caught her with another man in their car for over 40 minutes, I'm now questioning everything about our relationship, leaving me wondering what I should do next. Here's what happened. To start things out, I was planning to see my girl after work. We share locations, so I usually check to see where she's at, but I noticed that she was at an address where the house number was 1040, whereas her current place is 1052. When I got there, her location showed that she was in someone's driveway, but I couldn't see her anywhere. I FaceTimed her twice, but she didn't pick up, and instead she texted me saying, can I call you later? So I stayed near the location for a bit, and after a minute or two, I saw her getting out of a car with tinted windows and the lights off. I then honked to let her know that I was there. She then came over and told me it was a guy from work, and they were just talking about business-related stuff, and apparently they'd been sitting in the car for over 40 minutes. I tried not to overreact, but honestly, I definitely felt something was off. I then asked her if that was the guy's driveway, and she said no. So I asked, well then why didn't he just park on the street and leave his lights on? She then told me it was to avoid making a U-turn and to save gas. For reference, we've been together for 7 months now, and I don't want to jump to conclusions or show insecurity, but something about this just doesn't feel right. And at this point, I'm starting to wonder if maybe she cheated on me. What should I do? Okay, I've got to be honest with you. Anybody going to somebody else's car for 40 minutes is having much more than just a business meeting. And also, why would they have business meetings in someone's tinted car on the side of the road? Not to mention the fact that this is probably what, just right down the street from where she lives? And sure, you don't want to jump to conclusions, but I know if I was in your shoes, I would be like, wait a second, what's going on here? It really looks like she's cheating on you, and that is not okay. It's also really weird that she had really convenient excuses for everything this guy was doing, from where he was parked to what they were doing. Like for me, her story's almost a little too straight, you know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, she has an answer for everything. But it's like, why would you have an answer for that? Why not just say something like, oh, I have no idea, this is just where he parked, or something like that? Because her response really makes me believe that she just made it up on the spot. She's lying to you, this is not actually what happened, because this guy would have no reason reason to have that kind of dialogue with this lady. What, did he pull up and say, oh, I'm parked here because I want to save gas and I don't want to have a U-turn. Hop in the car, let's have a business meeting. Like, no, that's not happening. This business-related meeting could have easily been a phone call at best. So yeah, it does seem like something really sketchy happened, but in my opinion, it would be incredibly foolish to make any kind of accusation here, especially without some kind of like hard-hitting evidence. Like, you really need to figure that out first before anything else, because I can see it now. I can see her freaking out and be like, oh my god, you think I'm cheating on you? And then this becomes even worse, because if she's not cheating on you, she will probably never let that go, because honestly, who would? Like, I don't want to be accused of cheating, especially if I haven't done it. But also, if she is cheating, she's probably just gonna pretend like, oh my god, you accused me of cheating, now I have an excuse to break up with you, which I guess still works in figuring out the truth, but it also leaves like a lot of question marks for you because you don't know if it's the truth. So personally, if I was in your shoes, I would work really hard to find any kind of evidence, some kind of concrete proof that yes, she is or isn't cheating on you, because jumping to a conclusion, even though the evidence really is kind of there in my opinion, will only cause you a lot of problems. My teenage stepdaughter has been caught being a bully to another kid just because she's poor, mocking her because she doesn't have a lot of money, while also acting like a spoiled rotten brat. So I decided to punish her and put her in her place for acting like a bully and treating people like garbage. And now as a result, I'm being called a jerk, and I'm not sure if I went just a little bit too far. Here's what happened. So about 2 months ago, my wife and I learned that my stepdaughter, who's 16, was bullying a girl at school over being poor, as well as getting free lunch at school and not being able to afford necessities, such as her own car and other stuff like that. Now, our daughter was kind of spoiled. We provided her with everything she needed, along with an allowance and a part-time job at my company, and we own a small family service business. We've been considered middle class, doing things that other people weren't as privileged to do, such as buying our daughter a car on her 16th birthday. I come from a family of immigrants and was considered in poverty growing up, so after learning about the bullying, I was furious as we thought we didn't raise her to behave that way. She was in honors and top ranking of her class. I tried to talk to our daughter over why she would do that, and I was disturbed to learn it was because she viewed that girl as trailer trash, which really irritated me. The girl, from what I learned, is very smart and works hard. She bought her own beater car all by herself and works 2 jobs. She considered the money our family had as our family's money, so I put her in her place and told her that it was not her money, but instead it's my money and her mom's money. So I decided from that point I was spoiling my daughter too much. We ended up taking away her latest iPhone and replacing it with my iPhone 8, and we had it set up with a talk and text plan. We took away her family credit card, we sold her car along with her MacBook and other luxuries. I also told her she would have to find a job without nepotism and work a minimum wage job like everyone else her age, because I'm done giving her handouts if she's gonna act entitled. Fast forward 2 months later, and she is working at a fast food restaurant with us driving her around. She doesn't talk to me unless she needs something like a ride, but is very upset with me. My wife feels like I'm taking this too far because it's affecting her social status as well as her grades and schooling. I, however, feel like she needs to be humbled because I cannot have a daughter who will disrespect people just because of the amount of money they have. I also feel that her behaving this way will affect her younger sister and how she perceives the world. So am I the jerk for punishing my 16-year-old stepdaughter after the way she treated this other girl? No, you did the right thing in my opinion. You are absolutely not the jerk. You not only taught her a valuable lesson that no, you can't just have whatever you want in life, but you also showed her the consequences of her actions. And this is something that's really important to learn early on. Sure, she can be angry with you and upset that you're punishing her, but honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would rather have her be mad at me than to passively allow her to terrorize another girl at school, all because of the money she doesn't have. And also, how entitled can you possibly get? She thought the money that you and your wife had was somehow like a golden ticket to her acting like an idiot, and that in my opinion is so uncalled for. You simply shouldn't treat people like that. Like that girl who doesn't have a lot of money, she clearly works hard to have good grades and to be relatively smart. I mean, literally, it sounds like that's all she has. So to have this girl come in and be like, wow, you're so poor, you're nothing but trailer trash, and just putting her down and mocking her the entire time, like that's so inappropriate, and it's really good that you corrected her. And I think I could argue to some degree the way your wife feels. She probably thinks that taking her car away and all this other stuff is only gonna damage her, and I can kind of see where she's coming from to an extent, but this is a valuable lesson for her to learn, because honestly, the world needs a lot less bullies in my opinion. And if you can teach your stepdaughter that being a bully is never a good idea, then that, in my opinion, is a lesson lesson well learned. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled Karen constantly comes into our restaurant complaining and criticizing every single food item she ever gets. And after dealing with this for so long, my manager gave me express permission to deny her service if she ever gives me a hard time ever again. And I'm honestly so blown away by having this power that I'm now seriously wondering how I'm even going to handle it. Here's what happened. So when it comes to my job, we still have people who are just starting to come back out after the pandemic. This means they are in for a complete shock with how much has changed concerning service, portions, and prices. They always announce right as they sit down at my table that this is the first time they've dined out since 2020, so I know to proceed with caution. I also use this information to gently explain that things have changed concerning prices and supply issues, but I'll ensure they'll still have a good time. I actually want to retrain these people on how to behave because I want them to come back, but trust me, it is a lot of hand-holding. This one woman has been back once a week for 3 weeks at least. She orders something different every single time, so I know she's at least open to the dining out experience. But trust me, she is never ever happy. No matter how many explanations I offer up or how many quality checks I do, I'm always told after she finishes 99% of her meal that it wasn't good and she won't order it ever again. None of these issues are mistakes though. They're just smaller portions. Or it's a different sauce or it's a different cut, stuff like that. I've even gone as far as to explain how all the local food distribution companies have gone out of business and we are now codependent on 2. She might say something like, "Oh, so Joe's Bakery no longer delivers the bread?" I say to her, "Ma'am, Joe's Bakery has been shut down for 3 years. He doesn't deliver anything." Honestly, I'm so done with this lady. She brings in new people each time, which I appreciate and wanted to work with, but she's not doing us any help. I expressed myself to my manager and have been given the go-ahead to either refuse service with an explanation the next time she comes in, or after her next meal, ask why she keeps coming back if she's never happy. And honestly, right now, with all things considered, I don't know what to do with all of this new power. First of all, your manager is awesome. They not only heard exactly what was going on, but they decided if you want to refuse service, then by all means go right ahead. And that is honestly like the golden ticket. Like, I don't think I've ever seen a manager willingly give out that kind of card to their employee. And it first of all comes back to the point that they really do trust you. Like, they know you're not going to be like, you looked at me wrong, I'm not going to give you any service. Like, clearly you're going to use this in a way that's constructive and you're actually going to use it for the people who give you problems. But to have that kind of power at your fingertips, that is seriously such an awesome thing to have. Because I'm right there with you. People have turned into weirdos since the pandemic. Like, especially in customer service and like restaurant settings, people have become so entitled, it's honestly obnoxious. And it's so unfair to the workers who are just trying to get things done and make a paycheck. So good for you for being trusted with this power, and hopefully that lady comes in with a better attitude next time around, because otherwise she's gonna find herself with no food on her plate. My mom and stepdad claim to understand how busy my life is right now, but then turn it around on me and complain as if I never do anything for them. And at this point, I'm just so exhausted and I'm just so done with all of this, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm caught up in the middle of an argument between my mom and stepdad at the minute. My stepdad left her in June following an argument that turned sour between the two. The problem they both have is that he's a heavy drinker and my mom has anger issues. So combine that together and they just clash. Anyways, regardless, this argument between the two of them has been going on ever since, with both of them promising me they won't get me involved, but that is all they have done. My life is hectic at the minute. Me and my girlfriend moved in with my grandma 18 months ago, and this is right after her dementia diagnosis, so we live and care for her at the moment. We've got an 8-month-old baby boy who keeps us on our toes, and on top of that, I started my own business in June, and most days I'm out working 12 plus hours a day. I literally get up and out the door at 6 in the morning. I drive most of the day, and I'm limited to when I can text and be on the phone. I get home at about 6 p.m. on average, where we sit down, we eat some food, we wash up, then we have our little boy in a routine at about 7 o'clock p.m. where we get him ready for bed with a bath every 2 nights. That's a bottle, book, and then trying to settle him down. And this is also while trying to make sure that my grandmother's needs are also being met. Then we have washing up to do, sometimes bottles to wash and sterilize. Then we maybe get into bed at about 9 p.m. just to settle down, but I have to sit there on my laptop, catch catching up on administrative things for the business that I don't get the chance to do during the day. We maybe get to sleep at around 10 to 11 o'clock p.m., then I'm right back up at 5 in the morning and then I just repeat it. I barely see my little boy apart from bedtime most days, and it honestly breaks my heart. My stepdad recently saw me have a mental breakdown in regards to my grandmother's dementia only a matter of a month ago or so. Then, not long after, he started kicking off at me over text messages and emails, throwing things in my face that he's bought me over the years and telling me how awful and ungrateful I am. Then he's even gone back to my mom saying I never ring him or even visit him or care about him in the slightest. So my mom's responded reminding him I'm working all the time now, while also caring for my grandma and baby. So she's basically pretending that she cares. Her freezer broke yesterday, so she had asked me if we had any room for anything in our chest freezer. I told her we did a big shop over the weekend, and I don't think we do, but we could probably squeeze in some essentials. Then she messaged me this morning telling me that I was no help to her yesterday when she needed it, and all her food is now going to waste, and that my stepdad is right. I just don't have the time of day for them. So you know what? They're right. I don't have the time of day for them. They're exhausting whilst I'm already exhausted myself. They both want constant attention. Me and my girlfriend are absolutely exhausted with everything because we get so little help as it is. There's just not enough hours in the day to get things done. I know it's not always going to be like this, but at the minute it absolutely is, and we're really struggling. I simply can't be bothered with any of it. I just can't please anybody, and at this point, I just don't know what to do. Your parents are being so obnoxious. Like seriously, they're not only throwing things in your face and treating you like garbage for not giving them enough attention or whatever's going on there, but they're also using you as a pawn in their own game against the other person. Like just look at the way your mom responded to your stepdad, pretending like she even cared about you in the first place. Like that is super toxic and it's all manipulation in my opinion. And when it comes to your life in general, I really think it wouldn't be a bad idea to just focus on your family and your grandmother. If your mom and stepdad want to play these stupid games of guilt tripping you and making you feel like garbage, well then guess what? They can do that by themselves. You do not have to jump into their toxic cyclone. They are literally grown-ups and they need to pull themselves up and learn to lean on themselves. You're not responsible for them and you can only do so much. Because I know if I was in your shoes, my focus would be my girlfriend, my baby boy, and my grandmother. And anybody else, especially your parents, are just gonna have to take a second place spot. Am I the jerk for throwing my mom's words back in her face by saying that I won't help out around the house because apparently that's a woman's job? Here's what happened. I'm a 28-year-old male engaged to be married to my high school sweetheart. Due to some financial insecurities that we used to face, we moved back in with my parents for a little while until we were able to afford to rent an apartment. I've lived with my parents in the past, of course, but then I moved out with my fiance for 2 years. Now we've moved with my parents for a while until the house we want to rent is available, which will be in 2 months. For context, I have a married older sister who's in the brink of divorce with her husband because he's doing nothing around the house. He simply comes back from work and sits and plays until he goes to bed, while my sister does all of the housework on top of her full-time nursing job. My mom believes my sister is unreasonable for her demands towards her husband and believes it's a woman's job to do housework and cater to her husband, even if she works a job. Also, when I live with my fiance alone, she would always badmouth my fiance for forcing me to help out around the house and always said that as a woman, she's not taking proper care of me, her soon-to-be husband, because I also cooked and cleaned and did the chores, as well as many things around our home. Even now that we live in my parents' house, when we need to do laundry or anything like that, I don't expect my fiance to be the one to do it, and I do it many times myself as well. My mom doesn't like that and claims that my fiance has me as a maid. Now, despite all that, my mom demands that I help her around the house when it's housework that she wants to do, and I do always do my part since I live here, but for her, it's never enough, and I'm a lazy son who doesn't care about helping his mother. After all the ridiculous stuff she said about my fiance and my sister's traditional roles, I told her, okay, you know what? I'm not gonna help out around the house then. That's a woman's job, remember? So don't demand from me to help you with the chores, since it's a woman's job and I'm a man. Now, I keep defending my sister, and I keep contributing equally to my fiance and I's chores. I just refuse to contribute any helping hands to my mother, since she believes that she's entitled to help, but my fiance and sister are supposed to be maids. My mom has badmouthed me to the entire family right now, and whenever someone visits, they scold me and call me a jerk, basically for being lazy and not helping out my mother. So am I the jerk for giving my mom mom a taste of her own medicine? What should I do? It really sounds like your mom has some incredibly outdated views on marriage, as well as the roles that are set out. Seriously, the guy can clean up and do house chores just as much as a lady can, and vice versa. They're both supposed to be working on that together to make the house better. Your mom is completely misguided if she seriously thinks that your sister is doing anything wrong here. Her husband is being really lazy. Instead of helping around the house, this guy just comes home and plays video games all night and then leaves it to his wife to clean up. And this lady works as a full-time nurse. Now, I don't know about you, but that's a hard job with hours that are incredibly long. So the last thing she wants to do when coming home from work is have to clean up the entire house, all because her husband refused to do it. There's really no good reason why he couldn't get up and do the dishes or literally anything around the house. Now, when it comes to whether or not you should have helped your mom out, I think that really is up to you. I'm sure there's a lot of nuance associated with your relationship with your mom, so I can't really get into the specifics about that. But if you were trying to get a message across to her about how she's treating you and your fiance, then trust me, I really think the message came across very clearly. Because think about it, her only tactic right now after being caught in her words is to badmouth you to the entire family. I mean, if that's not the sign that somebody has been completely beaten, I don't know what is. So honestly, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk here. I think your mom is being really ridiculous with the way she views men and women, as well as their roles around the house. Because honestly, a man can clean up the house just as much as a woman. And if you want to have a successful household in any kind of way, then I really think that everybody should be pitching in their fair share. My wife cannot take any constructive criticism, and now it's starting to affect everything I have to do at home and at work, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my wife and I have been together for almost 4 years. We're both 30 years old and we've been married for a year. We love each other deeply, but over the last couple of years, I've noticed that she has gotten more and more defensive with not only constructive criticism, but also simple requests to stop doing little things. For example, we both work from home and my job is more demanding than hers. So sometimes I'll have to work after hours or on the weekends, and we'll need to focus very intently on my work. And frequently when she is off work, she will do things like loudly listen to podcasts, or sometimes she'll sing or talk to our cat, or just make general noises around the house. At times, she'll even talk to me after I politely tell her in an eggshell kind of fashion not to bother me for a finite period of time. Now, I don't want her to feel like she's in a prison after work, so oftentimes I will throw my headphones in and try to zone her out. And on occasion, in an effort to anticipate being bothered, I'll politely let her know that I really need to focus for the next couple of hours, and let her know that if she can just be conscious of that, it would be amazing. I don't know if that sounds condescending, but I'm very careful to make sure that I'm as sweet as possible. Because here's the thing, she takes little things like this as an attack on her personally. I used to wait until after she made noise to ask her to be quiet, but I would get similar responses. She would say stuff like, "Oh, I wasn't even making noise." Or she would also say, "You could have just told me that earlier." And then she'll get upset and turn it on me. For example, she'll say something like, "I'm putting the dishes away for you so we can have a clean house." Now, she is the one who puts more importance on a clean house, so I think this kind of excuse is just used to make me feel bad, but honestly, I don't know. Anyways, this work thing is just one example of her turning simple requests into bigger fights than they need to be. Sometimes this comes in the form of her passively saying something negative about me and me asking her not to say such things. The most recent case here is that she's afraid of bugs, but she's also vegan. So anytime we've seen a bug in the house over the years, she's asked me to take it out of the house as opposed to stepping on it. And you know what? I do that because I love her. And across 15 total bug incidents, I've accidentally crushed the legs of 2 bugs. And trust me, it wasn't detrimental to the bug's life and it wasn't intentional. But the other night, there was a tiny spider that she wasn't afraid of. When I tried to trap it and take it out, she told me that she would handle it because I too frequently crush their legs. My take on this is that I'm already abiding by her wishes by not crushing these things on site. So it felt like a low blow for her to mention this. Then when I told her that it hurt my feelings that she would say this, she got upset with me, saying that she couldn't believe I was offended by that. So pretty much anytime I have an issue with her, no matter what my approach is, she throws it back in my face. Look, I love my wife, but I'm really close to this, so I'm not sure what to do because my soul feels a bit crushed by these instances, as well as their subsequent petty, brutal fights. What should I do? So I can kind of see both sides of this, but honestly, I kind of favor the wife in this situation. First of all, if you really want to have peace and quiet, I think you both need need to invest in a separate room for you to work in so you can have some semblance of peace when you're working on something that's important. Because guess what? She lives there as well. She's allowed to sing to her cats and make noise in the house. She's also allowed to put the dishes away, despite the reaction that she might be giving you, which in my opinion is a completely different issue altogether. And I totally get it. Your work is very stressful, it's very demanding, so you really need to be laser focused on what you're doing. And I totally understand that and I respect that. That means you take your job seriously and clearly you're good at what you do. But it really seems like you working in the space that you're working in is clearly not private enough for you to get all this work done. Like seriously, think about it for a second. It really seems like your wife is living in a library. Any kind of normal household noise is like automatically shut down by you. She can't do anything without you being like, hey honey, could you be quiet please? I know if that was me, I would probably get really frustrated as well. Like come on, I live here as well. I should be allowed to make general noises as much as I want. So that's my first honest take on this situation. If you really want peace and quiet because of your demanding job, then it's time to set up an office somewhere in your house so that you can accomplish everything that you need to get done. Now, when it comes to your responses to your wife, I think that maybe there's some kind of like miscommunication going on here, or something's not quite connecting with the both of you. You're saying that she can't take constructive criticism, but also I think you're way too sensitive in my opinion. Like you're reacting to her putting dishes away out of the dishwasher, as well as just general noises around the house. It's not like she's doing this on purpose to annoy you. Like I'm pretty sure you would know if she was trying to be like malicious and sabotage your job. It sounds like you both love each other and that's just not the case. Also with the bug issue and her being like, oh don't do it, you're just gonna kill the bug. I seriously think you're blowing that out of proportion and it's not that big of a deal. So honestly, I don't think this is a case of your wife not being able to take constructive criticism, but instead I think you're being way too sensitive because your wife lives in that house as well. And for her to practically shut down her life all because you want peace and quiet, in my opinion, is completely unreasonable. An entitled Karen working at a major corporate company refuses to pay me for the work I provided. So I decided to get revenge by taking her and her company to court, forcing them to come before a judge just to prove them wrong that I'm deserving of the money that they should have paid me. And I've never felt better about getting back at somebody in my life. Here's what happened. So I was working 40 hours a week programming at my main job, but I did occasional small projects in the evenings or on the weekends for other clients. At one point, I was referred to a large company that runs major stadiums and event venues around the country. One of their stadiums is relatively close to where I live. And for the sake of the story, I'm just going to call this company Mark 1. That is obviously not the real name of the company. This manager at Mark 1 said they wanted a simple administrative database and user interface for employee timekeeping. Apparently, the old system that they had was not working for them. I got details of what they wanted and drafted a set of specifications. I told them I could do this for a $2,000 flat rate fee, and they agreed. I immediately went to work and churned out a database and a user interface for the system with full documentation, all in about 2 weeks. So I scheduled an in-person meeting to show them. Now, when I showed up at the meeting, someone representing the security department was there, and he asked about getting some additional features. So I said to him, sure, I can do that. So I went back, I wrote up a change request, and incorporated the additional features with the platform. I scheduled another meeting with Mark 1 for a couple of days later. When I got to that meeting, I noticed the audience had grown. There were 2 extra people from the finance department. They asked me, well, can you add like 3 more features that we really need? So I said to them, sure, no problem, I could do that. So I left, I wrote up another change request, and I added the features that they wanted. A few days later, I meet with them again, and imagine my surprise when the audience size had grown, and the new attendees asked for more features. This went on for 5 more rounds, and I was getting frustrated that a 2-week project was now taking a couple of months, and I wouldn't be paid until I delivered and they accepted the final product. But I chugged along, implementing all the change requests that they put in. But one day, the Mark 1 manager called me, and apparently she had been speaking with other departments that weren't represented in her status meetings of ever-increasing mass. She gave me a list of dozen new features that they wanted, some of which would require a complete redesign of the core database and an overhaul of the user interface. But at this point, I had had enough. I told her, this is a complete overhaul of the original specifications. I'll have to redesign and rebuild this from the ground up. This lady then said to me, well, that's not my problem. And it's at this moment that I realized that this company and all of its employees are nothing but bad news. When she said to me that this is not her problem, I responded by saying, well, actually it is. I'm not going to design and build an entirely new system until you pay me for the current one, which is the one we built out to the specifications we agreed upon. After a short pause, she dropped something heavy on me. She said to me, well, we're not going to renegotiate. You can consider this project canceled. I said to her, that's not how this works. You still have to pay me for the work that I've done. She then responded back by saying, no, I don't. You haven't delivered anything. Sue me. And that's right when she hung up. And at this point, I decided that I was going to maliciously comply. So I took Mark I manager's advice and I went to the courthouse the next day to file in small claims court to recover $2,000 from Mark I. On my court date a couple of months later, I went down to the courthouse and was greeted by an arbiter. In my state, they have court-appointed arbiters that meet the litigants when they arrive to see if the parties can sort out the case with an agreement to maximize the judge's time. The arbiter asked me straight up, is there anything that you would agree to resolve this immediately? I thought about it and I said to them, if they pay me 90%, which is $1,800, right now on the spot, I'll drop the suit. He then went into a side room where the Mark I manager and the corporate lawyer were hanging out. I heard her screaming that they would either pay it all or pay zero. The arbiter came to me with the news and I told him, oh, I heard it, and I'm happy to take it all. He then laughed and said no, they want to go to trial. Fast forward a couple of hours and we're standing in front of the judge. I'm at my table alone and the Mark I manager and the lawyer are standing at the opposite table. The judge asked the Mark I manager to tell her side first. She went into a very long speech about the project and corporate America and apple pies and sunshine and rainbows. And honestly, I have no idea because I stopped listening after 28 minutes. Literally, she talked nonstop for at least 30 minutes. Then the judge asked me for my side of the story. Now, I wasn't maliciously ignoring Mark I manager's long-winded tale of political intrigue and patriotism. I was actually formulating a strategy. I thought to myself, the judge probably had people who like to speechify in front of him all day, every day. I also thought he might appreciate a short and sweet story that got straight to the point and didn't waste his time. So I said to him, Your Honor, they agreed to pay me $2,000 to design and build a software system for them. I completed the work based on the agreement specifications, and they decided to cancel the project after I was done. And that is all I said. The judge then asked me, well, how do I know that you did the work? Well, I printed out the specifications, the change request, the documentation, and the source code the night before. I lifted a ream of paper about 500 pages thick from my table, and I offered it to the bailiff. I said to them, here's the code I wrote for them, Your Honor. The bailiff came to take it from me, and the judge waved him off. He said to them, no need, I can see it from here. The judge then asked the Mark I manager, ma'am, is this true? She then looked like she was in a daze. She said, yes. And that's when the judge said exactly what I was hoping for. He said, then I fine for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,000. About a month later, Mark I still had not paid me. So I called the county sheriff and explained. I sent him the court judgment documents and he said, oh, no problem, they'll pay. The sheriff then actually called me later that day. He was on a cell phone and I could hear him talking to the Mark I manager. He told her to cut a check for $2,000 right now or he was going to rip her computers out of the wall and auction them off until the judgment is satisfied. Now, I don't know if he had the authority, but the sheriff seemed to have a grudge against Mark I, and he was reveling in the opportunity to dog them out. Now, apparently, Mark I believed that this guy had the authority because, to make a long story short, the sheriff had a $2,000 check in his hand about 15 minutes later, and it was in my mailbox about a week later. And I've never felt better about getting back at somebody who clearly was trying to take my money. That is an awesome story. I can't imagine doing 500 pages worth of code and then having some stupid Karen of a manager step in and be like, oh, we're not paying you. If you don't like it, you can try and sue me. Like, lady, you don't know what you're getting into. That is so unfair, it's not even funny. I can't stand people who act this way. They're never honest with anybody around them, and they also treat people like garbage all because they feel like they have some kind of like air of superiority. Like, lady, all you had to do was pay this guy and hire somebody else. But you can't pretend that he didn't do his job and that you people are just weird and wanted more things all the time. Because that's all that happened here. These people kept coming back and asking for more, and it was stuff outside of what he designed and said, okay, this is what I will do. This is also not a question of if he could or couldn't do it. The original poster is clearly very smart. They're obviously qualified for the job. But let's say hypothetically I'm building a house, and then my client comes back and says, we don't like that house, build us another one. I would be like, okay, well, pay me for the first one first, and then we can talk about a second one. Because that's basically what happened, and it's honestly crazy that they didn't pay this guy. So good for you for getting your $2,000 and shoving it right in their face, because these people absolutely suck. And I'm absolutely convinced that if you did not get a judge involved, these people probably never would have paid you. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My parents are currently telling me to not come home for Thanksgiving break, all because I went to a debate tournament. And right now, I'm so frustrated, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm in college right now, and I live away as I dorm. I'm also in my college's debate team, and this weekend we had a debate tournament at a school a couple hours away from us. I actually live in the same city as where the debate tournament was taking place. I was planning on going straight home after the debate tournament for Thanksgiving break. I told my family I would be home this weekend and that I had the debate tournament as well, and they were fine with it. Since the tournament was a 2-day thing, I initially asked my parents if they were comfortable having me and my team members stay over at my house. They said we didn't have the space, so I looked for accommodations elsewhere, and by that I meant a hotel. My debate team then looked for hotels, but we were gonna be there Friday night in a big city, so we decided to stay at another team member's house who also lived in our same city. Anyways, the day comes around, which was yesterday by the way, and we attended the competition, and it all goes until 11 o'clock p.m. I call my parents and I tell them that I'm going to my team member's house. At this point, my dad loses his mind because he thinks that we should be in a hotel and that my university doesn't care about us since they didn't put us in a 5-star hotel and drive us out there with a big car. But I told him that's not how it works. As a club, we only get a certain budget, and we chose to not spend it on a hotel so that we could have money left over for our future expenses. He was also upset I'm staying at a stranger's house, even though it's my teammate that I've known for years, and her parents were there with us. My dad was upset and told me to find my own way home, and he was initially supposed to pick me up. My dad didn't end up picking up my calls until later into the night. Early this morning, when we arrived at the tournament for our second day here, I called my parents to let them know that I'm safe. My dad angrily told me to quit the debate team and that this would be my final tournament. I told him no, I won't be doing that, and that I didn't do anything wrong last night anyways. In the end, he told me to just go back to my college and to not bother coming home for Thanksgiving. I'm still at the tournament right now, and we leave in a few hours. And honestly, right now I'm wondering, how do I better communicate with my parents on this issue, and should I spend Thanksgiving break at school? What should I do? That is honestly awful. The way your dad and parents are acting is so out of line. Seriously, what are they so mad about? They're first of all pretending like they care about your safety, while also being like, well, now you can't stay with us at all. Spend your Thanksgiving break on campus, see if we care. Also, I'm not gonna pick you up like I said I was going to, bye-bye. Like seriously, your parents are awful. And the fact that your dad tried to make you quit the debate team as a 20-year-old adult, that in my opinion is hilarious. This guy has no say over your life anymore. He can't tell you what you can and cannot do, and he can't make you do anything in my opinion. Sure, you can try and honor your parents' wishes as best you can, and try and have some kind of relationship with them, but if that starts to be a detriment towards you and your happiness, then it's time to take a step back. And in this instance, I don't think that would be a terrible idea. Like, your parents are very much involved in your life, which is awesome, that's really good, but it also seems like they have some kind of weird entitlement over what you can and can't do. Like, just look at your dad for example. All jokes aside, he really thought he was entitled to try and make you quit debate team, and that's crazy in my opinion. So you know what, if I was in your shoes, I would honor what they said. I would be like, okay, you want to try and act like that? Fine, I'll go back to campus. I don't need this garbage. Now, if you do that, I think there is a chance he might try to guilt trip you into coming back to his house or some other weird stuff like that. I personally would not be surprised if he tries to do that and tries to spin this against you, all because he said, oh, you're not coming to my house now. Which, by the way, I'm still not clear as to why he's acting like that. It really seems like you were trying to just make things work for both you and your debate team while you're going to this tournament that clearly was very important to you. So honestly, I'm so sorry your parents are acting like this, because honestly, you do not deserve to be treated like that in the slightest. My dad is constantly trying to shove his religion down my throat, and after dealing with this for so many years, I'm finally at a breaking point, and I now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I was closer to my dad growing up much more than I am now. My parents divorced in 2005 when I was about 6 or 7 years old, so most of my life with my parents had been back and forth trips on weekends and divided holidays. My mom had custody of me and my brother technically, but there was no separating us from our dad. It was a pretty amicable divorce. We had shared time for years, and it didn't seem to affect our relationship with our parents until I guess when I started high school. My dad used to drink a lot, but I don't remember him as a heavy drinker at all. I just remember him as my dad. Maybe I was too young to notice because my older brother remembers it more than I do. My dad met a woman who did help him sober up more, but also got him on the born-again Christian pipeline, and it completely changed his personality. My dad met this woman when I started high school, who is now his wife. When they first got together, it was fine, but quickly my dad decided to move almost an hour away from our hometown and still expected me and my brother to fulfill the same amount of visits after school and on weekends. Both my brother and I began to hate going back and forth. I remember I used to get so angry because I was constantly trying to do schoolwork on school nights after driving an hour to go see my dad. I was an honors high achiever type that had a lot of homework on his plate, and then he would get annoyed that I was paying more attention to my schoolwork than him. It became a struggle of giving my dad all the attention he wanted rather than what I wanted or needed, and because of this I started to resent him. I resented that he didn't take me or my brother's time into account. Well, one Christmas, he made us drive an hour through a snowstorm on Christmas Eve, and the storm continued through Christmas Day as we drove home to see our mom's side of the family. My brother had just gotten his license and I was about 13 or 14 years old. I remember that so vividly because I think that's when I realized his narcissistic tendencies. He changed so much because of his wife. He became almost like a completely different person. He isn't the dad I used to know. And when that started to happen, I also resented his wife, even though it was probably good for him that he was sobering up because of her. But I didn't recognize him anymore, and I would get into fights with both of them on visits. I hated her for changing him. I didn't feel like I could connect with him anymore. Now, me and my brother were not raised in religion. We were given the choice to choose what we wanted to believe. But once he changed, he began to try to impose all of his beliefs on us. My brother seems to be able to let it roll off his shoulders pretty easily, but for me, it drove me insane. My political beliefs as well are the polar opposite of my dad's. I'm very progressive and he is very conservative. I don't want to get into any debates on here, but I feel like this context is also important to mention because it affected my view of my dad intensely. I didn't want it to, but when it started to involve hate towards women, I felt it personally and it hurt. It's like everything I believe to him is devil worship. It's like he feels the need to save me from myself. With all of this being said, it's very hard for me to understand him, and it's hard for him to understand me. And it would be fine with me if we didn't talk about any of it, but it's like he's a missionary, and he feels like it's his duty to change me and my entire personality. I've had multiple conversations with him about how I don't want to share our beliefs anymore because it does more harm than good. It's like an incessant thing that he feels that he needs to talk to me about. I don't feel much of a connection to him anymore. It feels shallow and artificial, and seeing him feels like an obligation or a chore to me. He is trying to stay connected with me, and I appreciate that he's trying. He is trying to find basis for what we can connect on that doesn't involve religion or politics, but I can barely give him the time of day anymore. I feel guilty about it, but I'm 25 now, and I have so much going on in my life that needs my attention more. I just don't know how to connect with him anymore, and I'm okay with that, but he isn't. He is constantly trying to be in my life, and I do feel horrible about it, but I am so much more comfortable with the distance that I've created between us. Everyone tells me that I should try to stay connected more. Am I doing something wrong by not wanting him super involved in my life? What should I do? Honestly, it really seems like your dad is being super toxic right now. He's trying to force his religion down your throat, and that, in my opinion, is so unacceptable. It would be one thing if it was like an honest and sincere invitation for you to learn about what he believes, but right now it sounds very coercive and very toxic. And I think you're right. It really does seem like he's on a mission to try and like save you from yourself, but it's like, buddy, I don't believe the things you believe. Can you please lay off and let your religion be like a personal thing in your life? Why on earth are you trying to impose it on me? When parents or siblings or anybody does that to anybody else, that in my opinion is so far out of line, it's not even funny. People have free will. They can choose to do whatever they want, even if your religion says otherwise. So honestly, with all things considered, I don't blame you for pulling back, and I really don't blame you for being hesitant about coming back into his life, because honestly, the way he's been acting is super toxic, and I would not want that kind of energy in my life in the slightest. My dad constantly body shames me and makes me feel awful, and after dealing with this as his caretaker, I'm now at the point where I'm trying to move out, and I now seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I I have been caretaking for my elderly dad as my mom passed away several years ago, and my relationship with my dad has been strained in general because of his narcissism. It is very difficult because I am a people pleaser to a fault, but I have gotten very angry and resentful of the way that he has treated me within the recent months, and quite frankly, over the years. I'm looking to make other arrangements so that I don't need to help him anymore, but in the interim, it's been difficult. He constantly diminishes the amount that I do. He tells me that all I do is make a few meals for him, and it's his way of trying to be in control, and like he can just do it on his own. In reality, I do a lot more than that. He is elderly and has some health issues and mobility issues, and was also used to my mom doing a lot for him. He constantly is gaslighting me into thinking that I'm the problem when I speak up for myself. When he is rude to me and I tell him that he's being rude, he basically tells me that I need professional help, that I'm uncooperative, while also asking why I can't just be sweet towards him, as well as just be loving, and that I just don't do anything for him. Well, today I hit my breaking point. He's very critical of other people's lives at times, but more specifically, he's very critical of me. Today, he was feeling angry about himself in terms of pain he was feeling in his back, and he took it out on me and told me that I'm not gonna like hearing it, but that I need to take some weight off. Mind you, I'm 32 years old, I'm not a child, so I told him that it's totally inappropriate for him to try and control my life as I'm an adult now, and to just be flat out rude. I got upset and I told him that he shouldn't be acting like I'm a kid, and then he responded by saying, well, I shouldn't be acting like one then. He told me that he's a truth teller and that to him I look like I've gained weight. I'm so tired of being criticized in every single way. It has taken a serious toll on me, and every time this happens, I feel horrible about myself. He's done things like this before. He always projects his own misery onto the most vulnerable person, which is me. I know that I need to separate myself from him and not help him anymore, which I am desperately trying to make plans to do, but finding a new place has been difficult price-wise. I am looking into caregiving services for him to use when I leave. When I do leave, I feel like I'm likely going to need to take space from him and go low contact or even just no contact altogether. My sister and he are going to Thanksgiving together to my extended family in another state, but I got invited to go to a tailgate and a football game, so I am having Thanksgiving with my friends and her family. I feel like my dad is just going to talk ill about me the entire time when he's one-on-one with my sister. It just makes me feel all around awful about myself, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Honestly, this is such an awful situation. Your dad is being so toxic, there's no other way about it. He's basically taking for granted the fact that you're taking care of him, and he's taking out all of his weird frustrations out on you. And by the way, I'm sure you didn't gain any weight. He's probably just saying the one thing he knows that can hurt your feelings. He's coming after you in a way that he's probably done for a long time. So in my opinion, I don't blame you for getting out of that house. Find a caregiver, move out, and just don't deal with him any longer. Because in my opinion, you should not feel obligated to take care of somebody who treats you so poorly. An entitled Karen falsely claims that I stole her property from her Airbnb. And even though she had no evidence to back up her claim, Airbnb decided to take this entitled Karen's side, leaving us with a fake permanent review. And I've never been more frustrated in my life. Here's what happened. A couple months ago, my now husband hosted a bachelor party. He used our house as it could accommodate all of the groomsmen, and it was close to the places they'd be hitting up. My husband kindly rented me an Airbnb for that night. It was a modest suburban home and perfect for my dogs and me to spend the night. We were one of her first guests, and there were no reviews. But what's the worst that could happen, right? Well, upon arriving, for starters, I noticed 2 outdoor security cameras. There was one out front, catching both the front door and the driveway, and one out the back door into the yard. I thought to myself, awesome. I was cool with these because I thought if anything happened during my trip or even after my stay, they would know it wasn't me. The stay went great. I spent the evening snuggling with the puppies, eating takeout, and vegging out to movies. When the time came to go to bed, I noticed the pillows were these fancy, weird-shaped pillows. I was poking around and found 2 normal human pillows in the closet by the bed. I thought to myself, nice. So I tossed them on the bed and I went to sleep. The next morning, I loaded my dogs in duffel bags, which was visibly floppy from being mostly empty. I left the 2 extra pillows on the bed so she would know to wash the pillowcases. They were under the comforter of the remade bed, but I assumed that she would use her eyeballs when she changed the sheets. I got home and my husband left them a great review. Well, about a week later, my husband gets some concerning notifications from his Airbnb app. This host actually claimed that I stole the 2 normal pillows from from the closet and is now charging him $90. She also left a horrible and scathing review so other hosts could see that we steal stuff. My husband assured her that we didn't steal anything. He tells her to check the bed and also her camera so she could see that nothing I left with could possibly contain pillows. She responds that I must have found a way to sneak them out. Again, I'm thinking to myself, what are you talking about? We appealed this to Airbnb, but because they never got the camera footage that the host had, they ruled against us. By this time, we figured we could redeem ourselves by editing our rating of the house to explain this very issue and warn other potential renters that this place is sketchy. But unfortunately, we discovered at that point that we could not change it, because of course we couldn't. And now future hosts will have to worry about us stealing. We paid the $90 and my husband left a comically petty note suggesting that she change her used sheets at some point and that when she does and sees her precious pillows, to send our money back and give us an apology for her awful behavior. Wow, what an entitled Karen. Seriously, that is an awful way to do business. I can't believe that someone would seriously act that way and accuse you, out of nowhere mind you, for stealing something from their house. It's also insane to me that she could get away with this without any kind of evidence. Literally, she just said, wow, they stole from me. And Airbnb is just sitting there like, yeah, you're right. They clearly stole from you. Don't send us any camera footage to, I don't know, validate your claim in any kind of way. We're just gonna believe you instead and assume you're not lying through your teeth. Like seriously, this system is so messed up. Like what happened to due process or proving your case? Why would you automatically assume the host is telling the truth when there's no evidence to back up anything they're claiming? So that truly is a shame that you didn't have any justice in this situation, because this entitled Karen of a host was clearly lying through their teeth. They saw that their pillows were misplaced, so they took that opportunity to try and act like you stole it. That is such a toxic thing to do, and that entitled Karen is a massive jerk. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled mother has this weird habit where she will invite herself over to my apartment just to spend the night. And after dealing with this for so many years, I'm finally at my breaking point. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I moved out when I graduated college to work at the capital 2 hours away from my mom's house. I've moved 3 times now, and each time I move into a new place, she goes out of her way to come up with some excuse just so she can spend the night there. Long weekends, holidays, vacations, it's always the same. She says to me, let's spend the night at your apartment. It doesn't matter if my contract says I can't have people spend the night. It doesn't matter if it's a 1-bedroom apartment. It doesn't even matter if I have roommates. She just decides it's fine to impose on my living space and of course drag my older brother along, making my situation even more inconvenient. I only have one twin-size bed, but she always has a solution. She has an air mattress which can barely accommodate 2 grown men or my obese mother and one of us, while the other takes my bed. No space in my bedroom? Not a problem. They will sleep in the middle of the living room, inconveniencing everyone else in the apartment. Each time I've shut down the idea, but she will find any and every excuse to demand again. She doesn't even ask if it's okay. She just asks me, we can spend the night at your new place, and doesn't even say anything about the sleeping arrangements, as if it's only natural that she's staying at my place, whether I like it or not. She has done this more than 10 times since I first moved to an apartment. It's one of the main reasons I've never given her any gate access or keys to my apartments. I currently have a roommate whom she knows personally and didn't even think that maybe she should ask for permission from the 2 people living there. This isn't the only thing she does in terms of not respecting my boundaries. There are times I drive her places, and if a friend says they need someone to drive them home, she will just speak up and say, oh, my son can drive you home. He brought me here, so it's fine. And then I look like a complete jerk after I had to let the person down easily and tell them that no, I actually can't drive them because I have other things to do, or I simply never agreed to that. I've talked to her about respecting my boundaries, and she either gets mad at me because she's my mother, or she cries that she's losing her son because I told her no. I'm losing my mind. It feels like I have to remind her that I'm an independent person, and she can't make any decisions for me. And the few times she understands she needs to respect my boundaries, she only accepts that specific boundary that specific time. It's like her brain can't comprehend that when I say she needs to respect my boundaries, it applies to all of my boundaries, not just that specific time. I honestly need to figure out how to get through her thick skull, because because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, I can understand where you're getting frustrated here. It seems like your mom is just completely walking over your boundaries. Like she just assumes because you're her son, she can show up whenever she wants and just inconvenience literally everybody in the house, whether it's just you or your roommates. I know if I was your roommate, I would be very annoyed. Suddenly your mom's here taking up the entire living room? Like seriously, could you at least ask me first? Your mom seems incredibly inconsiderate in that way, because she's not thinking about anybody else, but instead it's almost like she's idolizing some version of you that you simply are not anymore. For context, the original poster is 32 years old, and I bet what's going on here is that the mom still sees you as her little boy, which I'm sure is endearing in some kind of way on her part, but the reality is that it's really annoying for you. You have your own place to stay in. You have a job, you're trying to make ends meet, but she's constantly trying to come in and basically invade your space, and that's really annoying. That would really frustrate me as well. So I think just learning to say no and really putting your foot down and saying, hey, I can't have you come over whenever you want, or at least really determining and saying, no, you cannot cross this boundary with me. Doing something along those lines I think will go a long way, because eventually and hopefully she will get the picture that no, she can't just show up whenever she wants. And if she does show up, she has to either get a hotel or at least ask first before coming over. Like, I don't know about you, but if I'm visiting somebody, I would rather stay in a hotel room than sleep on some stupid air mattress in the middle of their living room. So hopefully all of this can get worked out in some kind of way where your mom is understanding of what you do and don't want her to do. Because right now it really seems like she's not considering how you feel about this at all. And hopefully that can change sooner than later. My fiance's best friend copies everything that we do. And after dealing with this for so long, it's honestly getting exhausting, and I now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I want to start off by saying that overall, I'm feeling a bit frustrated, confused, and like I have no one to talk to about this. My fiance has a lifelong best friend. They work at the same office, they have extremely similar college majors, and their best friend's apartment is in the same building as our apartment. Before I met my fiance, he and the best friend were roommates in the first unit. Then my fiance and I moved into a different unit to begin our lives together, and I'm currently struggling that his best friend seems to copy everything that we do. We moved in together, and he tried to move his girlfriend of 1 month in with him. We got a realtor to look at houses, and the very next day, he also had a realtor, and they were touring some houses. We arranged a meeting with a mobile homes dealer, and he booked an appointment for the same day 30 minutes before us, which resulted in our appointment being rescheduled. We thought about getting a duplex, and he toured a duplex that week. We offered on a beautiful house, and he offered on a house a few weeks later. My fiance and I also enjoy hiking, so now the best friend is trying to get his girlfriend to go hiking as well. My fiance proposed and we celebrated, and then this guy buys his girlfriend an engagement ring. We then took a break from house hunting and paid a massive chunk of my fiance's student debt off. As soon as he told his best friend, he paid off even more of his student debt than we did. Finally, last night we decorated for Christmas. My fiance was super proud of our festive home and sent some pictures over to the best friend. Well, this afternoon, his girlfriend came over to help him decorate the apartment today. In the past, he only ever put up a mini Christmas tree in his room, so this really seems out of character. In the end, I know I can't control what this person does, but I can't help but be a little concerned and a bit discouraged by the constant copying. The best friend also makes jokes that when we have a kid, he'll have a kid with his girlfriend so they can be best friends. Perhaps it is just a joke, but the track record suggests otherwise, and I really don't want our decision to have a child to impact someone else's life like that. Overall, I don't want the life we lead to influence the path his best friend takes. I want the best for all of us, and I would appreciate some perspective, even if it's just that I shouldn't care or think about it. What should I do? I think what I'm gonna say is probably not gonna be useful like in the slightest, but I seriously don't think there's anything you can do about this. It really seems like the best friend wants to stay in your fiance's life for as long as possible. They are clearly really good friends, and it sounds like he wants to emulate your life because he probably looks up to you in some kind of way. And let me try to dispel your fears. This guy would have to be actually insane to try and set up having a kid at the same time as you and your fiance. Like, that's a hard line in the sand that I just don't think he would ever try to cross. But when it comes to him decorating at the same time as you guys, or even looking for a house at the same time or paying off student debt, there is unfortunately not much you can do other than just not tell him what your plans are. Because it sounds like once he finds out about what you're doing, he then says, oh, I'm gonna do that too. And honestly, with all things considered, I don't think this is any kind of like deal-breaking situation in my opinion. Sure, he's literally copying everything about what you guys are doing right now, but I really just can't see him doing that in the long run. Now, if this guy was doing this for like several years and was like obnoxiously following everything that you guys are doing, that would be really creepy, and I'd be like, yeah, let's move and get out of here. There's no way I'm putting up with that for another year. But for now, it seems like this might be just like a temporary thing, because maybe he's just excited for you and your fiance. And also, when it comes to you influencing his life choices, I think you've really got to take a step back here. This best friend is 100% in control of his own life, and if he really chooses to follow in you and your fiance's footsteps, then he can try and do that. But those footsteps, no matter what, are still his to make. You are not responsible for anything he does or doesn't do in his life, even if he is trying to copy you. And there's no way he could try to blame that on you, because it's not like you're telling him to do that. It's not like you scripted out everything that he should do. This guy's just straight up copying you and your fiance. So I know if I was in your shoes, I would choose just to ignore it. I would take it as a sign of flattery that my life is clearly so important that they want to emulate it, and then I would just leave it at that and move forward with my life. Because honestly, who cares what this best friend thinks? He doesn't control what you and your fiance do, and if he really wants to try and follow in your footsteps and copy everything that you're doing, then honestly, so be it. You're not responsible for it, and in the end, if he does end up messing up, then all the blame will squarely land on his shoulders. Am I the jerk for telling my friend's boyfriend that he shouldn't have been allowed to eat any of our food after he didn't contribute anything to our meal that we planned out as friends? Here's what happened. So some friends and I decided to do the trend where we have a dinner and everybody brings a food that starts with the first letter of their name. There's one friend of ours that's a bit of a moocher. Whenever we go out, she never pays for stuff. Whether it's the dinner bill or tickets for the movies, we always end up paying for her. But everybody accepted this and doesn't really have an issue with it. However, recently it's become worse. She's been dating this guy for a couple of months, and she brings him everywhere with her, even when he's not invited. So now we have to pay for 2 people instead of 1. Also, I feel like I have to say that they have jobs. They're not struggling. It would be different if they were broke, and then of course I wouldn't mind. But yeah, we had the dinner last night and everybody brought food and put a lot of effort into it. These 2, however, showed up with absolutely nothing. Not even a bottle of soda. We were annoyed, but nobody said anything. It wasn't until the end of the night when they were leaving that I cracked just a little bit. The friend's boyfriend was taking home all of the barbecue ribs that were left over. I repeat, he was taking all of it, and it was a lot. Like, come on, be considerate at least. He emptied the entire tray of ribs into a container, and that's when I politely asked him. I said, "Can you not take all of it? The others might want some as well." He then got all defensive and said to me, "Why are you treating me like I'm stealing all the food?" I clarified that I never said such a thing and that I only asked that he didn't take all of the food. He then got angry, plopped the ribs back, and said, "Fine, I don't need your food." To which I replied by saying, "It kinda seems like you do, and to be honest, you shouldn't have eaten at all since you didn't contribute again as usual." Then my friend came, took him, and just left without saying anything. And now, apparently she's angry with us, but mostly me. Most of my friend group doesn't think that I did anything wrong, but there are a couple who are saying that I shouldn't have said anything. The thing is that I didn't even say anything to my friend because I don't mind that she doesn't contribute. Her boyfriend, though, was really irritating me. He eats the most food but doesn't contribute. He drinks the most alcohol but again, doesn't contribute or do anything. He'll also order really expensive meals and then doesn't pay anything towards the bill. I guess I got a bit annoyed and I just finally snapped at him. I tried to call her up to clarify that I don't have any issue with her, but she is currently ignoring me. And at this point, I'm wondering if I'm the jerk and if I should have just left this all alone. Yeah, this is one of those situations where someone was very blatantly mooching off the group, and they know that they're mooching off the group, but as soon as somebody like vocalizes that, suddenly it's a problem. Suddenly, just like this boyfriend, they're gonna get so defensive and be like, wow, now I'm not gonna take any of it. And this is all because you're like, hey, could you not take all of it? Like, are you kidding me right now? Which really is not that big of a request. Like, if you want to take some, sure, but taking all of it seems really selfish. And couple that with the fact that the girlfriend doesn't even pay for her stuff either. And it really seems like there's some kind of trend going on where these people feel like they can just take whatever they want whenever they want. And that, in my opinion, is so inappropriate and not okay. So I think you're completely justified to call him out. It seems like he's only there to get free food, all because his girlfriend also gets free food. And while we're on that topic, that female friend had better start getting their act together. Like, seriously, why are they acting like they have no money or never even making an attempt to pay for stuff when they know they can? They work, they both have jobs. It's not like they're struggling or anything like that. Instead, it really seems like they're just taking advantage of their friend's generosity and they're saying, oh, free food? yeah, count me in, let's do that. Like, I'm really surprised your friends, especially in these unique scenarios, are allowing her and now her boyfriend to act this way. That seems really counterintuitive to the group as a whole, and I would be really frustrated if I was in that situation. Like, if this happened like maybe once or twice, I would be understanding and be like, yeah, sure, come along and eat and I'll spot the bill or whatever. But it sounds like this keeps happening, and at that point, it really leads me to believe that she's just taking advantage of your situation. So I really think you were in the right to call him out, because he was going to take all of the extra food that nobody ate. And the fact that he did that all without even asking first, in my opinion, is like icing on the cake, because it flat out proves how entitled these people really are. And I do not blame you for confronting him about this subject. An entitled customer gets incredibly picky, refusing to take no for an answer, and all around causing massive problems and headaches for me. So I decide to maliciously comply and look for the very thing he kept asking for, wasting his time in the process and showing him outright just how annoying he truly was being. Here's what happened. So where I work, we register cars and issue plates according to what we have in stock. It's a common question for people to come in and ask for specific number tags. And normally, if I have anything applicable, I'll try and accommodate as best as I can. Well, cue the entitled customer as they come in. He hands me his paperwork for his car and a temporary tag. He then asks me for a plate with very specific numbers. I say to him, okay, I just restocked and I'm 99% sure I don't have those specific numbers. And of course, instead of accepting what I just said, the entitled customer wants me to check to see if we have those numbers. But I say to him, no, we go by what we have in stock. I told him he could go check up and down with all of my coworkers just to see if they have any of those numbers, but it's slim pickings that anyone is going to have the exact number plate in their drawer. Eventually, he quiets down while I work his paperwork up. He then says to me, are you sure you don't have those numbers? Even if it's not the exact sequence, I just want those numbers. I say to him, sir, I can assure you, I do not have those specific numbers. Please go ahead and sign here. But this guy was not taking no for an answer. He said to me, yeah, but it's just an important number for me. Are you sure you can't check? I said to him, I just restocked my drawer. I don't have those numbers. Thankfully, he says okay, and I finish up the paperwork and start typing. I get to the very end and I tell him what his total is. I tell him that we take cash, card, check, or money order, and I stated that the plate is already picked out. He then says to me, okay, but are you sure you don't have those numbers? Now, at this point, I'm just fed up. I've been lenient with the 5 times that this guy has asked me, so he really wants me to search and find it? Okay, fine. I pop open my drawer and I go through the first rack of plates. This is a pretty hefty stack, enough to make a solid thump on my desk. I look at him and I say, okay, let's take a look. How about it? He then tries to backpedal. He says to me, oh no, you don't need to. But I say to him, oh no, I insist. I go through them one by one, and wouldn't you guess it, I couldn't find a single one with those specific numbers. Now, by the time I'm done, the entitled customer is saying, okay, I'm ready to pay. But I completely turned Billy Mays here, and I said to him, oh, but wait, sir, there's more. And it was right then that I grabbed a second stack of plates. Now, the entitled customer in question eventually got the hint that I didn't have a specific plate because he ended up paying and left saying that it was a cultural thing for good luck. I kind of felt like a bit of a jerk there, but I am not an Etsy artist, meaning that I do not do custom orders. What we have is what we have, and hopefully this guy remembers that the next time he tries to be picky. Yeah, that customer was being super obnoxious. There is no reason for them to be acting like, oh, can you just check in the back? Buddy, there is no back. If I tell you we don't have it, we don't have it. And I think this might be something that's like in common with working customer service. It seems like people are like, oh man, you're hiding out on the good deals, right? If I keep asking and make you go to the back of the store or whatever, maybe then I can say, well, at least I tried. Like, wouldn't the customer know exactly what they do and don't have? How can you honestly be that dense where you just don't get it? So honestly, I think it's really funny that you decided to be really petty there, because that guy was really just not getting it. And honestly, he has no one to blame for his stupidity except for himself. My entitled boss, who is a Karen, forced my entire office to travel over 2 hours every single day just to make it to our new location for work. And she only did this so she could cut cost. But after dealing with this for so many months, I finally decided that enough was enough. So I decided to start a rebellion with all of my coworkers, forcing my entitled Karen of a boss to see how wrong they truly were. Here's what happened. So I worked for a large international accounting firm with offices all over the country. Our boss, who is the Karen of this story, was well liked until she became the boss. A smiling assassin type who only cared about her position and looking good in front of the higher ups. All about the numbers, even if what what we had to do to get to those numbers didn't make any sense. So with that bit of background out of the way, here's what happened. My team had about 12 people, and we were primarily based in the London office, but once a week per my contact and everyone else's, we were required to work in a remote office ages away from London. This place was miserable, a building in the middle of nowhere, one tiny corner shop for snacks, and it was next to a motorway. The nearest place to eat was a 15-minute drive away. We all hated it, but on the bright side, it was only once a week. Anyways, when our boss got promoted, her sole life mission was to cut cost. Everything from stopping overtime to telling us we had no stationary budget for pens and that we had to just take from other team stores, all the way to allowing only one meal on social drinks, and then making comments at the meal when someone chose theirs to be a more expensive option. She would seriously say stuff like, "Are you really choosing that? It's so expensive. I'm not sure we're gonna have enough money in the budget for that." Now, this is considering all other teams went for large fancy dinners all the time, and they also had unlimited drinks and so many other perks. At one point, she actually decided that the miserable location should be our primary office, and she wanted us to all go there 4 days a week instead of one. All but one of our team members were living in London. This meant for me, I had a 2.5-hour journey one way instead of 1 hour. And let me tell you, after a few months, this really took its toll. The assistant manager, who's a friend of mine, told me she said in passing to him that this office was less of a cost on our team budget than the London office. So seriously, what a shock, am I right? Well, I decided to speak to HR and see what my options are. Maybe get some kind of exception. Well, it turns out we had a policy that anything over your normal travel hours to the closest office location to your home could be used as your working hours. So the extra 1.5 hours each way would then be considered working hours. So I could arrive at 10:30 instead of 9 a.m. and leave at 4 instead of 5:30. Also, if trains and things were delayed or canceled, that would also be included in working hours. This happened often, as this place was in the middle of nowhere, and there were infrequent trains that came along. So I was often arriving at 11:30. I forwarded the emails with HR to her and explained how I would be complying with this policy. Now, the entitled Karen agreed, but tried in a meeting to tell me this was an exception for me and to not tell anyone else about it. Well, guess what? I ended up ignoring her and telling literally everybody else about this. And you know what? We all began complying with the policy. This meant we spent less time in the office and productivity eventually dwindled. She mentioned this a lot in meetings. I would often respectfully point out that it didn't make sense to force us to travel to this office and it's only having negative effects. And I was the main one speaking up about this. At some point, maybe a few months later, she told me I could go 5 days in the London office, but again, this was a special arrangement for me, while also saying that she appreciated me and was making accommodations only for me. She also said she would tell everyone I had special circumstances that allowed me this arrangement and to keep our conversation confidential. I honestly think she just got fed up with me pointing out how our productivity is lower, only because she made us travel there 4 days a week. Of course I complied, but the team honestly noticed that I wasn't with them, and let's just say it caused a bit of a riot. I didn't say anything, but they all figured it out themselves, that there were no special circumstances going on for me. Slowly but surely, one after the other, my colleagues started joining me in London, getting their own special arrangements with my manager, and at some point, the majority of the people were in London. Eventually, it was just her and the only other colleague at this office, while we were all in London. We all had a good chuckle about when she would cave, and it honestly took a good few weeks to make that happen. Then we got the email that our permanent location going forward would be London, and that would be 5 days a week. And the one local employee to that terrible office would work from home and come in once a month. It may have happened anyways, but I like to think that me speaking to HR and finding that policy at least had a hand in getting us moved back to London. As for the Karen, I could go on about so many stories with her, but I did eventually leave for reasons directly related to her. Unfortunately, she is still in the same position at that company. I do, however, enjoy seeing her checking my LinkedIn profile from time to time and hopefully noticing that since I left, I have gone from a junior position all the way up to the same position as her. Yeah, that's a really selfish thing to do to your team. Literally, she's like, okay, we're gonna cut cost, so I'm gonna make all of you travel hours every single day just to get to work. Like seriously, people are more than just numbers. You need to look at this logistically and think, okay, will this be a nightmare for everybody involved? Because guess what? If you make people travel over an hour to go to a location that they definitely did not need to go to, then there's gonna be problems in the workplace. Like, this entitled Karen was only thinking about her bonus at the end of the year. So good for the original poster for speaking up, because the way they were being treated as well as their coworkers were being treated is honestly so disgusting, and they did not deserve that in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My girlfriend's house is completely unlivable, but now that she's living with me 24/7, we are now being challenged by getting into an argument just about every single day. And after dealing with this for so long, I'm now worried that this could affect our relationship permanently. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my girlfriend and I are in the midst of our second year of university after doing our first year abroad, which is where we met. We sorted out our housing situation for the following year without being able to vet our apartments or roommates. In other words, it was a complete gamble. Thankfully, I got extremely lucky as I had a longtime friend already living on the main campus. My family also has more financial wiggle room, so I'm able to afford a 2-bedroom with just me and him. I have a cozy, furnished apartment with a pretty chill roommate. Needless to say, I'm extremely grateful for my situation. My girlfriend, on the other hand, was a lot less fortunate. She ended up having to sign a year-long lease with 4 other girls that she had only met a month prior. The house turned out to be old and decrepit with a negligent landlord. One of the girls turned out to be an absolute pig who feels entitled to make the entire house her personal mess. Her boyfriend is constantly over, clogging the toilet, and just generally being disrespectful. Did I mention she takes any criticism personally and gets defensive? Which is just all around joyous. Every single one of the other girls has had a mental breakdown purely from living there. The house is dusty, poorly maintained, and it's been very difficult for my girlfriend to feel at home in her little nook of a room. This has been a consistent problem, so my girlfriend is at my place a lot sleeping over, sometimes for a week at a time. Currently, it's even worse. The hot water has stopped working, and the landlord is taking absolutely forever to fix it. All 5 of them are either living with their boyfriends or back in their hometowns until it gets fixed, because it is just so miserable living there. Like, it's a borderline human rights violation. The water is straight up brown. Naturally, she is living with me, as my roommate is understanding of her situation, and she's extremely respectful, even offering to clean and cook dinner on occasion. I should add that during our first year, she essentially lived with me as well. She had a roommate that made her uncomfortable, and we were more than willing to constantly be in each other's presence. So she eventually moved all of her stuff into my dorm room. We would chat all the time. The constant access to intimacy was good, and we got into very few arguments. We did, however, need occasional alone time, and she would escape to her room just for that. I mean, it's just not feasible to spend 24/7 together in one room. Even married couples don't do that. In this instance, though, things are a bit different. She's a 20-minute walk from her place, so she's often too tired to leave if she wants alone time. She also has to bring a big bag of her stuff back and forth in case she sleeps here. And even if she did go to her place right now, it is so unlivable that it's actually impractical to even be there. It's not like she would be able to chill there until she falls asleep or anything. She has to walk back if she wants to wash her face or brush her teeth, as well as cook literally any food or even wash her hands after using the bathroom. It's honestly ridiculous. Nowadays, she is basically getting cabin fever at my place. As school stress picks up, the frequency of our arguments is increasing. Also, for a variety of reasons, not just this, our collective mental health is in the gutter. So, on many days, we just take our ADHD medication and sit silently, doing schoolwork or scrolling on our phones, not even talking or joking around for long stretches of time. It isn't driving us completely insane, we just wish that there was an easy way for us to get alone time while also being in a comfortable space. She had a really rough day today, and I'm not sure my constant presence was helping. I don't take it personally, as we've all been there. It just seems like there's no real solution because it's not immediately obvious that her living situation will get much better. We love each other a lot, but it kind of just feels like we're roommates who occasionally spend time together and get into mini arguments once every day or two. What I just described sounds like a 20th anniversary situation and not a 1-year anniversary situation instead. Our brains are not developed enough for this. So what do we do? How do we manage this? I am a tad worried that the health of our relationship might continue to suffer unless we find some kind of solution. What should I do? It kind of sounds like the both of you need to get out of the house. You need to find something to do outside of your apartment just so both of you can have some downtime outside of that space. It really does does sound like you're both getting cabin fever and like you're both like spending all the time together, so of course you're gonna have arguments. Like that would happen with literally anybody. I don't care who you are. So sure, there is a space for her to have alone time of some kind, but also the both of you need to get out and do something besides staying at home. For example, you could study in the library instead of staying at home, or you could find some kind of like club you can join and participate in that outside of school just so you can have some other place to go to that isn't school, home, or work. Like I really think that would be valuable for like your own mental health. So hopefully this will all work out, because honestly, this would be a horrible way for your relationship to fall apart. My dad is on a tirade because I want to have Thanksgiving with my mom and her family, and right now he's treating me like garbage and saying horrible lies about me to his extended family, all because I don't want to have Thanksgiving with him. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. To start things off, I'm an 18-year-old male, and I just graduated from high school this June. My parents got divorced beginning of last year, and I've been split on a week-by-week basis, switching off between them. It has been very rocky and probably the worst year of my life. My relationship with my mom is good, but she and I have a few issues, but we are generally good. As for my father, he's done a lot to screw over my life recently. For context, he's always been unsure, but I knew he was showing his true colors when college applications came around. I make short films. I write 24/7 and I act. I literally do all of it. My whole life, I've wanted nothing more than to be in the film industry. My parents have known this and been supportive. But when I finally got accepted into my dream film school, I was planning things out to go and found out my dad spent all my college money on a trailer. He tends to be a compulsive buyer when he's upset, and the divorce sent him off to spend $100,000 on a trailer. That money could have paid my whole college and enough for me to live on my own for months, if not longer. And most of that money was for my college. Then he did the same thing with my car money and bought a motorcycle for himself instead. In the past year and a half, he's only used both of them less than 5 times. He doesn't cook for us and gives us cheap microwave meals to eat, but will then cook himself big protein-filled meals, which simply doesn't help. And he's great at manipulation and scare tactics from his old job. Well, fast forward to now, and Thanksgiving is right around the corner. This morning we were at my mom's, and today is the day we switch over to our dad's. Mind you, I'm 18 years old, and my brother is 21 years old, so we don't have to go to either place, but I appreciate both of my parents even still. So this morning, we texted our dad that we wanted to have Thanksgiving with our mom and her family, because it just makes more sense. With our dad, we can choose any day this week to enjoy a dinner and our time together, since it is just us 3. With our mom's family, it would take lots of planning to get everyone's schedules aligned. But my dad, upon seeing this text message, sent me an angry emoji face, and then went on to write a paragraph about how he'd planned the whole thing. He in fact did not tell us a single detail about Thanksgiving, and never even asked what we wanted, so we were just completely in the dark. I explained to him any other night works fine, and he responded, "No, I'll cancel everything. Do what you want," which is very passive-aggressive. Tonight, I overheard him on the phone with his long-distance girlfriend, who's still married to her husband, mind you, and my dad was letting loose to her. He goes off on my mother and her family, and on my brother and myself. He calls them horrible names, especially my mother. He lies about many more things, and how we don't have any respect. He said that I just sit on the computer doing nothing all day, despite the fact that my work is freelance work, and all my editing, animating, and writing is done on the computer. He also refers to what I do on the computer as me being lazy. He says that we screwed him over and that we just don't care, claiming that we get all of this from our mom. He then lies to her and says he planned the whole thing and told us, and we rejected that and said that we are doing our own thing. But that's not even the worst of it. He said even though I offered another day, he wants to say to us, "No, you guys keep your stupid, awful microwave meals I buy, and you can go have a meal with your mother and everyone else. I'm not gonna go out of my way and do anything else for you guys when you didn't plan anything anyways." Then he goes on to say he's let us live under his roof for free and buys us everything. For the record, we do all the chores and upkeep here, and he only buys us groceries. Ever since the divorce, even when I was 17, he forced my mother to buy clothing, school supplies, and a lot more. There is so much more, and I've rambled already for so long, but I really just need some advice. What am I supposed to do about him and everything he said about me? I'm not exactly in the position to move out on my own, especially without a car, because he used my car money to buy something else. I just have no clue what to do. I mean, do I even even confront him? Do I keep it in until I can somehow move out? He doesn't handle confrontation well. He just gets incredibly angry and his imposing figure doesn't help. What should I do? So in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would be silently finding a way to move out and get away from him. Now, I'm not saying that's what you should do. I think you need to weigh your options and figure out what's best for you in your situation. I mean, there's a lot of nuance going on here that I can't possibly understand. But just from the surface level of what you've described, I would be looking around to friends and other family members, or even extended family members that I know I can trust, and be like, hey, can I move in with you? And then just straight up explain the situation. But in my opinion, based on the way your dad acts and the way he just doesn't handle confrontation, I think approaching him and having any kind of conversation would be a horrible idea. This guy seems like a hothead. It seems like he's just trying to find ways to get back at your mother because he clearly doesn't like her. And I'm willing to bet he's the reason why his marriage fell apart. I would also, depending on how I feel about my mom in this scenario, go to her and be like, hey, can I move in with you for a while until I at least have some like full-time work that can get me a paycheck so that I can have my own apartment and all this other stuff? Don't get me wrong, I get that you're doing freelance work and all this other stuff, but typically I'm willing to guess that your work is probably very low pay since you're so young, so it's not like you're making a significant amount to try and support yourself. So I know if I was in your scenario, I would look to my mom or somebody else to try and get out, because your dad sounds incredibly toxic, and there's no way in the world I would ever want to put up with that if I was in your shoes. Today, I messed up by leaving my friend at a gas station during a road trip, and now, as a result, my friend is refusing to talk to me, and now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for starters, I'm a 21-year-old male, and I have two friends. We'll call them Jake and Rick for this story, just to protect their privacy. We were planning a road trip down to the southeast for months, and a week ago we finally did it until things went horribly wrong. The first 2 days go by smoothly. We all take turns driving and we're having a great time chatting. We're stopping by various tourist destinations and seeing lots of cool things. In order to maximize the amount of time we're actually doing fun stuff or making progress on the drive, we made a rule to limit all stops for bathroom or food to 10 minutes or less. This will be important later on. On day 3, we didn't get on the road until 10 o'clock in the morning, which was way later than we wanted to, but Rick had a stomach ache and was in the bathroom for quite a while. And that was honestly fine. We forgot about it and hit the road. We then stopped at a few cool places along the way. At around 3 o'clock p.m., we stopped at a gas station for a bathroom break. Jake and I went to the bathroom and bought a couple snacks, and we're back in the car in about 4 minutes. I had Jake set a 5-minute timer for Rick because he was still in the bathroom, likely with a stomach ache again. The timer went off, Jake went in and banged on the bathroom door. Rick said, "Oh, I need a couple of minutes." Jake comes back to the car and lets me know, and I turn the car on and start to drive off. Jake starts yelling at me, but I tell him to relax and that it's just a joke. I was planning on turning around in a couple of minutes. I just wanted to give Rick a little bit of a scare. Well, about 3 minutes later, right about when I was planning to turn back around and pick Rick back up, Jake starts to get a call from him. I say to him, "Please don't answer the phone." And I was laughing uncontrollably. Jake agrees and now is also amused by the prank, and we get about 4 more calls on the way back to the gas station. Well, when we get there, Rick is gone. Now, we didn't find out until much later, but apparently he got so anxious and angry that he called a chain of Ubers to drive him back home. And I know what you're thinking, that is a bit of an overreaction, but I feel bad for the guy. Jake and I immediately tried calling him back when we couldn't find him at the gas station, but he never picked up. So now this harmless prank caused us to cut the trip extremely short, as me and Jake immediately drove straight back home and got back the next day. Rick still isn't picking up calls, and whenever we tried to knock on his door, his girlfriend told us he didn't want to see us. I'm hoping he'll get over it, and honestly, I don't know if this is a very appropriate reaction, but deep down, I'm really scared that I lost a valuable friendship over this silly prank. Yeah, you're a massive jerk. I just want to start off by saying that. If my friend decided to leave me in some gas station that I didn't know about after having a stomach ache in the middle of nowhere, I would lose my mind. This is not a silly prank, and it's definitely not harmless. Like, the fact that you're saying that is honestly so disturbing to me. Like, you literally betrayed his trust in a way that is so inappropriate, and then he had to go through a series of Uber rides just to get home. Like, seriously, what is your problem? Why would you think that this is okay to do to somebody? Honestly, a lot of trust goes into a road trip, and one of those things that you can't break for a second is the trust that you are going to take care of each other. So driving away and leaving your friend in the bathroom just so he can fend for himself itself is honestly so toxic. There is literally no good excuse for that, and I don't blame Rick for being angry with you. Even reading back through your post, I'm honestly offended that you're trying to justify this prank. You're trying to act like, oh man, he's so mad after I left him in the middle of nowhere. It was just a silly, harmless prank. Well, guess what, buddy? You just lost your best friend, all because you decided to literally abandon him in the middle of nowhere. If this was somewhere where he was like familiar with his surroundings, it would be way different. Like if you were in your hometown or something like that, I think everybody could probably laugh at this and be okay with it. But you decided to ditch him in the middle of nowhere, all while he's sick and feeling very vulnerable. So honestly, in my opinion, this is not an overreaction. The fact that you're trying to underplay the severity of this, in my opinion, is completely uncalled for. And if anything, you're having an underreaction. So yeah, I think you're a massive jerk for this, and I don't blame Rick for a second for deciding not to talk to you or your friend ever again. Because seriously, both of you are terrible friends, and Rick deserved a lot better than the both of you on this road trip. An entitled Karen tries to steal a Pokemon plushie that I just purchased, claiming that she bought it for her daughter and that if I don't hand it over, she was gonna have me arrested. And I'm seriously blown away by this entitled Karen. Here's what happened. This story also came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you'd like to submit your own story. Okay, so this happened last week, and I'm still wondering how someone could be so entitled and try and take anything that they want. For a bit of backstory, I love shopping at charity shops, and I do so when I have some free time. You can find some amazing items for very cheap. I had just been in one of the shops when I noticed a little girl around the age of 5 pointing to me and yelling, "Mommy, she has a Pokemon plush, it's so cute." Now, the Pokemon plush in question was the Pokemon by the name of Eevee, and it looks like a tan-colored fox with long ears and a tail. I just smiled at this and continued on my way, only to then be stopped by the mother, who looks to be in her 40s, covered in makeup so thick she could join a circus and in high-heeled shoes. She looks at me and says, "Excuse me, my little girl would like that toy you have. Be a sweetie and go ahead and give it to her." Now, when she said this, I was shocked for a second. I then said to her, "I'm sorry, but I got it for me." I then turned to the little girl and I say, "I love this Pokemon too." The girl just nods and smiles, but this entitled Karen of a mother carries on. She says to me, "Give me the toy or you'll be sorry." I then just walk off, only to feel a very large tug on my bag and the woman grabbing the tail part of the Pokemon. I immediately yell at her and I say, "What are you doing?" And this is all while she's grabbing at the ears of the Pokemon plushie. So there I am, playing tug of war in the middle of the shopping center while a crowd of people are watching. The little girl is screaming out, "Leave her alone, mommy." It's not long until a security guard walks up and asks what the problem was. This entitled Karen then does something that honestly blew my mind. She starts screaming out, "She stole my daughter's toy and I want her arrested." And when I heard this, I was honestly in complete shock. I say to her, "That is not true and I can prove it." And as I yell back, more and more people are starting to join the crowd around us. The little girl screams out and says, "Mommy, please don't lie. You're pulling off the Pokemon's tail. Please don't hurt it." Eventually, the guard takes the toy from both of us. The security guard tells everybody to calm down and then turns to me, and he asks me if I have any proof that this does indeed belong to me. So that's when I pull out the receipt. I say to him that it shows the price I paid, the shop name, and there's a tag on the toy that matches everything. The security guard takes a look at both, gives a nod, and says, "Yep, we have a match." Now, you would think that the Karen would have bolted at this point, but no, we didn't have that kind of luck. Instead, she continues to scream and wail. She says, "They match because she stole the bag. She is a thief. I want her arrested." And as she's screaming this, literally spit is flying from her mouth. Now, at this point, I feel sorry for the little girl who keeps tugging at her mom, literally saying to her that she wants to go home. And honestly, this is getting embarrassing and I kind of want to go home too. The guard then radios into the camera center. He says that we have a situation, and then he asks them to take a look and tell him what they saw. Now, at this point, the Karen goes Snow White. I've never seen someone change colors so fast, but it's not long before a response comes back. The security guard says, "Oh, I see," and then hands the toy back to me. He says to me, "I'm sorry for the trouble and I'll get this sorted out." Now, at this point, the entitled Karen actually tries to make a break for it, but the crowd that had gathered actually stopped her tracks. The security guard leads her away with a little girl behind them. I end up thanking them and have a few people ask if I'm okay or if I want a drink, but I politely say I'm fine and I say thank you right as the crowd begins to break up. After this, I immediately head home, wondering what on earth just happened and feeling sorry for the little girl. Now, as for the Pokemon plushie, it had a rip where the tail meets the body, but thankfully I was able to sew it up and place a ribbon bow where the fabric was ripping. But honestly, I just can't believe the entitlement of this entitled Karen. That is such an awful thing to try and do to somebody. Here you are just buying a Pokemon plushie that you really like, and then this crazy lady comes out of nowhere and tries to be like, yeah, you stole that from me. Give it back right now. Like, that is honestly such a stretch, it's not even funny. And it's also such an unreasonable attempt to try and steal from somebody. Like, the original poster has a receipt, and there's also probably cameras all over the place at the place you went to go shopping. So for this weird, crazy mom to walk up and be like, yeah, that's mine, you should give it to me, that is so uncalled for, and I really hope she got in trouble because of this. Because that kind of behavior absolutely should not go unpunished. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my cousin that I didn't get a graduation present? Because right now, my mom is furious with me, and I seriously now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I recently graduated from university with honors. I'm not from the United States, and I'm attending university for free with a scholarship, which took care of my housing and food situation. The country I'm from has really good deals for student dorms, and I was able to stay at a dorm for the entirety of my studies. I don't own a car either, as I work from home, and this will be important later on. I landed a stable job right after university, and I'm attending what you would call in the United States as grad school. My parents weren't really supportive during my studies. They expressed zero interest in attending my graduation or conferences where I presented my work. Well, yesterday I visited my uncle. He took his children to Paris for a holiday, and they had an absolute blast. So I went over to see the photos and videos, and just to hear about how it all went. My cousin, who's 8 years old, asked me if I've ever been to Paris, to which I told her no, but it is on my list. She asked me why I never went to Paris, and I told her I never had the opportunity to. Now, my university friend, who's 24 years old, was in Paris at the same time as my uncle and cousins, and they met by chance at a restaurant. My uncle knows my friend, and he mentioned that he saw them in Paris. For reference, my uncle is an interior designer, and he designed my friend's mom's house after I introduced them. I remembered he was gifted a trip to Paris and London as a graduation gift from his parents, and my uncle mentioned that my friend told him so. I remembered my friend telling me about that holiday, and I verified to my uncle that was probably his graduation present. And then my cousin asked what I got as a graduation present. Now, as you all probably have guessed by now, I got absolutely nothing. I'm absolutely not entitled to anything, but for context, my younger sister, who's 19, got into university this year, and my parents gifted her roughly $900 worth of gifts, including shoes and jewelry. I told my cousin I got myself a pair of shoes I really wanted for graduation, and from my first real paycheck, and my boyfriend gifted me a notebook. My cousin looked really sad, and told me that's really not enough for something as big as a graduation. My uncle looked really upset too, and I just switched over to another topic. Well, fast forward to this morning, and I got an angry call from my mother. She called me an ungrateful brat for demanding a gift for doing what was required of me to do, and asked if I wanted a participation trophy as well. She also mentioned that my uncle suggested they buy me a car, which is something I never wished for or even expressed in the slightest. She then said if I wanted a car, I should work for it, which is a sentiment I completely agree with. Eventually, I just hung up because I didn't have it in me to try and deal with her. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation for telling the truth? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk. You didn't do a single thing wrong. For starters, I completely agree with you. You don't have to get something just because you graduated, and you were not expecting anything. Like, it really seems like you were just waiting in the sidelines and saying, okay, whatever, I don't really care. It's not that big of a deal, and I don't care if I get anything from my family, despite the fact that your family clearly favors your younger sister. But with all that in mind, the fact that your mom called you up and screamed at you, in my opinion, is the funniest aspect of this entire story. She didn't yell at you to reprimand you for being ungrateful. She yelled at you because you exposed the truth about her. She did nothing to celebrate your graduation. Like, that's really what's going on here in my opinion. She clearly feels guilty, and she feels bad that now her uncle knows the truth about her situation. And that, in my opinion, is the best part about this. This is someone screaming because they're guilty, not because they're angry about something you didn't ask for. And on that note, your uncle is really stupid for even suggesting that you would want a car. Like, that was most definitely not a part of the conversation, and it's inappropriate for him to basically speak for you like that. But with all things considered, I don't think you did anything wrong. It's not like you were going to your uncle and being like, wow, I can't believe I didn't get anything for graduation. You were literally clearly just answering an 8-year-old's question. Like seriously, why would your mom freak out like that if she didn't have some kind of like underlying guilt about the way she treated you? Because clearly she plays favorites towards your sister. And now, in a roundabout way, you have exposed that to the rest of the family. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. An entitled jerk gets put in his place after he picks a fight with a wrong person. And I've honestly never been happier to watch someone get taken down in my life. Here's what happened. So I work in IT, and many moons ago, early in my career, I worked as a call center support rep for an internet service provider, and we'll just call that the ISP. Now, we are no strangers to calls from angry customers, but we had one within a few months of my time there that I still talk about to this day. We will call this guy Jerkface. Jerkface became very well known in the office as he would call in and rage for no reason at us, sometimes never even getting to what his actual problem is. To give you an idea of how infamous this guy was, at one point within a few nights, he called in and was hung up on by over 24 different representatives because of how much of a total jerk he is. The one time that I got him, he opted to cuss me out seemingly every other word. After trying my best to help and giving him several warnings to not use that kind of language, I too got to hang up on him and join the club of other people who have hung up on Jerkface. But a few representatives later, and he is where our story begins. He called back in to rage and wound up talking to another one of my coworkers, who we will call Joe. Joe is not his real name. When Joe answered the call, Jerkface, as always, preferred to cut him off and rant about how he's been on hold forever. He had a knack for vastly over-exaggerating the amount of time he was waiting. For example, when I talked to him, he had told me that he had been waiting on hold for about 5 hours, but our phone queue showed he had been waiting for only 5 minutes. I don't know every detail of what was said on Joe's call with Jerkface, but there are a few highlights that I can share with you that Joe had told me about afterwards. The first is that Jerkface made a vague threat towards Joe as he said the following: "How would you like to live to see tomorrow?" Now, clearly in customer service, it is common sense that you don't threaten customers back in cases like this, but Joe's response was pretty smooth. Joe is a veteran, and you could tell looking at him as he had the build of someone who was in the military. He very calmly responded to Jerkface. He said, "Sir, even if you did come after me, I'm a veteran. I could put a world of hurt on you 5 ways from Sunday." Jerkface then immediately started backpedaling. He said, "Well, I didn't mean it like that." But it then begs the question, in what way did you mean it? Generally, when someone says something like that, you can only interpret that in the manner that Joe did. The kicker of this call, however, came towards the end, as Jerkface started ranting about how ISP's employees should be forced to work 24/7 with no breaks and no time off at all, claiming that he works constantly with no breaks. Joe decided to call his bluff on this and asked him, "So what you're telling me is that you don't take any breaks at all?" With Jerkface responding by saying nope. My coworker then says, "Not even to use the bathroom or get a snack?" To which Jerkface responded by again saying the word nope. At this point, Joe decided to give the guy a break, as the next thing he said to Jerkface was absolutely priceless. Joe told the guy the following: "Okay, well, I'll tell you what I can do. I can schedule a technician to come out to your home and look at your service, and when he gets there, you and the tech can share a Twinkie." When Joe told me this, I laughed hysterically, as I had never heard of anyone in customer service responding like that. The story of this call was shared around for a while, and I still share it with people today as an example of how not to be a jerk when dealing with customer service people. Ultimately, Jerkface wound up talking to the manager several levels up, and he was told that if he continued to call and harass any of us any further, his services would be terminated immediately, and we would refuse to ever service his home ever again. Well, we never heard from him again, but it honestly makes me wonder if he ever did get that Twinkie. Yeah, it's so disappointing when you have to deal with customers who act like this. This guy clearly called into this place just to scream at these workers. It didn't seem like he had any kind of problem going on, but instead he was just looking for a fight. And it's really funny that he ran into the one worker who just simply wasn't going to take it any longer. Like, this guy absolutely had it coming. The Jerkface in this situation was so out of line, it's not even funny. I mean, I'm kind of surprised that it took this long just to get the higher-ups involved. So I think it's really cool that Joe was up for the task of putting this guy in their place. He was simply being so obnoxious and so uncalled for, and there's no reason he should have the right to talk to people in the way that he did. Today, I messed up by dumping a year-old grudge on the wrong person, and now I feel really stupid and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I first want to start off by saying that every name in the following story story is fake. So there is a decent amount of context that I need to explain. The three main people in this story are Mary, who got me into a friend group, Sarah, the problematic person who led the group, and Beth, who's one of Sarah's friends. We're all in our late 20s and early 30s. Near the end of 2021, I became part of a Discord friend group that started with a new friend of mine, namely Mary, as well as her friend Sarah. Mary and Sarah created the server together, but eventually had a falling out, and Mary left the group. I stayed in, but Sarah had a penchant for drama and immature behavior that led to a lot of conflicts, both involving me and involving other people in the server. She regularly pushed physical boundaries with people when she or anybody else was drunk. She tried to get my then girlfriend to hook up with her when I wasn't around, and did a series of other inappropriate things that made me and other people incredibly uncomfortable. Some of these things I experienced firsthand, and some of it I saw from the outside looking in, but there were countless other examples from firsthand witnesses. I mean, some of these things would make your skin crawl. Eventually, after being in the group for about a year, there was an incident that made me realize that nobody in the group would confront her when she did things like this. So I effectively ghosted the server. I stopped talking there and instead tried talking to the half dozen or so people I was closest to in my DMs, but most either didn't respond or indicated that they would only talk in the server, which I was eventually removed from. Losing all these friends at once really hurt, and for a few months, I often thought about what I would say to Sarah if I ever saw her again. In my head, I had a list of the worst things she's done to me and the group. Well, I eventually realized that this wasn't a healthy way to keep thinking about things, so I stopped thinking about it and became a lot happier. A short while later, I ran into Mary at a party, who is the original friend who got me into the group. We started hanging out as friends again for the past couple of months. No Discord or anything like that, and it was honestly really nice. But then, last night at Mary's birthday party, I was caught off guard to see Beth, one of Sarah's best friends from the server. I hadn't seen someone from the server in a while, and while I was still drunk, I had a flood of negative feelings, memories, and anxiety completely wash over me for a bit. But I decided it was best to just talk to other people. But then, on the way home, a group of the partygoers all traveled together on the subway, including myself and Beth. Eventually, it was only myself and her left on the train, and I decided, very poorly mind you, that I should finally talk to her. It started as an attempt at explaining why I was avoiding her or just being awkward tonight, and quickly spiraled into a bad time. I told her I had a weird feeling when I saw her, remembering the friends from the server that I had lost, with her included, even though we weren't that close. I asked if she was still in Sarah's server, and when she said yes, I asked if Sarah was acting any better. Beth asked me what I meant, and my drunk idiot brain decided to dump about half of the list of awful things it had stored up there for about the year prior. Now, Beth was immediately taken aback and rebuffed several of my points, specifically ones that happened to other people that I may have only heard about in passing. Every story was a first-hand witness who described their involvement and discomfort to me, but I decided to pivot to just my own accounts. She seemed surprised to hear about some of the things Sarah had done specifically to me, but I could tell I definitely lost the point of the conversation and was basically just having an impromptu meltdown over repressed memories to this person who didn't want to hear it. In the end, I apologized and said I was drunk and clearly just still very hurt over what happened. I told her losing so many friends at once was really hard on me, and I assumed Sarah and people's allegiance to her and the server were the reason I wasn't hearing from anybody. A half dozen other people had left the server over the same time period due to their own falling outs with Sarah, and they were ghosted as well. Beth told me that she didn't know why people weren't talking to me and that I should ask them, which I then pointed out that I can't, since none of them will respond to me. It felt like a slightly improved tone for the conversation by this point. I mean, it was still a mess, but it was definitely less antagonistic. Beth then had to get off the train suddenly, all with a rushed farewell from the both of us. So that's honestly how I messed up today. I probably won't hear anything directly from any of the old server mates, but I imagine this incident will wrap its way through the gossip train all the way back to me soon enough. Yeah, I can definitely understand where you're coming from, and I can see how this is a massive mess up. For starters, Discord can honestly be such an obnoxious place. Like, don't get me wrong, it's great to hang out with people in chat and all this other stuff, but I have found so often that Discord drama can happen over the dumbest things. And if your friend group isn't strong enough, then suddenly you're gonna have some kind of weird falling out. And that, in my opinion, is already stressful enough. But the fact that one of the main members of that server not only left that server, but has decided not to deal with Sarah any longer should be proof enough that Sarah is toxic and that she clearly has problems that nobody seems to be brave enough to say anything about. And trust me, I get that. She's one of the people who created the server. It is technically her space, so it kind of makes sense as to why nobody's gonna step in and be like, wait, you need to stop acting this way. And I mean, so many people have already left that server and they've decided, you know what, Sarah is not worth my time. But more to the point, I really think it was a bad idea for the original poster to dump all that baggage on Beth. She's probably sitting there like, wow, what is this guy talking about? I have nothing to do with this and I don't want to get involved. And here you are dumping all this weird emotional drama on me as if I'm your therapist. Like, I can definitely see how that would be really weird and kind of awkward, especially when you don't have all the stories right. I mean, Beth very clearly spent some time correcting the original poster on many points that they were clearly getting wrong. But here's the part that really bothers me the most. It's not necessarily anything that the original poster did. Yes, they probably should have held that in and shared that with anybody else, but it's the fact that Beth wanted to sit there and act like Sarah hasn't done all this weird toxic garbage. Like, even with all the weird things that Sarah has done and all the toxic things she's done and said to other people, even with all that out in the open, this Beth lady is still willing to defend Sarah in a roundabout way. Like, how can you seriously at that point not take some kind of like step back away from the Discord server and be like, wait a minute, maybe Sarah really is toxic. Maybe she is the problem in this situation. I don't know, it just seems really silly in my opinion to sit there and allow this original poster to say all these weird things about Sarah and not even once coming down to the ground floor and seeing where the original poster's coming from. So yes, you did mess up, but I really think you got out of a really toxic friend group because none of these other people have ever sent you a DM back. And that, in my opinion, is a clear sign that these are no longer real life friends, but instead they're more like internet acquaintances, which in my opinion, I think most people in any online interaction would definitely fall under that category. An entitled jerk destroys my Nintendo console in a fit of rage, but after I save up enough money to buy a new console for myself, this jerk steals it for himself and tries to use it without my permission. And I'm honestly so glad I don't live in that environment any longer. Here's what happened. Okay, so for a bit of backstory, this happened about 4 to 5 years ago when I was living in a group home under CPS care in Australia. So I apologize if anything appears to be weird or if the details are left out. I'm also posting this just to vent, as thinking about this event still gives me anxiety. So anyways, I have been obsessed with Nintendo since I was very young, specifically the Nintendo Wii. And at the time, I had a white one coupled with Wii Sports and a dog-themed game that I can't remember the name of. I saved up almost a month worth of pocket money to buy this console, along with several games, and I loved that console as it was an escape from the garbage that another resident had been putting me through. Let's call this person Mike. Mike is not his real name. Mike, to put it kindly, is an absolute jerk. He would always pick fights with me, resort to violence if he doesn't get his way, and often stole or destroyed my property, such as the time he punched me in the back of the head because of an argument that I don't fully remember. All I remember was that I had an argument, got punched, and the next minute I was laying on the couch with a massive headache. Anyways, this all started when Mike and I were at the dinner table, and I tried to start a conversation about what we would do if we ran our own empire. He went on and on about how if he ran his own empire, he would eliminate me, if you know what I mean. And I honestly started to get a bit annoyed, as I really tried changing the subject. He just kept going on and on until I snapped at him and told him to shut up and let others talk. Well, that was a massive mistake, because he got so enraged that he walked from the dinner table and entered my room, which I accidentally left unlocked. He proceeded to trash my room, destroying my brand new Nintendo Wii, all of the games, and even a Kodak camera that a teacher gifted me. I rushed in to try and stop him, but the caregivers proceeded to restrain me instead of him, thinking that I was the aggressor. I couldn't do a thing as he slammed my console on the ground multiple times until it was simply in pieces. I can't remember much of what happened after that, but I do recall picking up my destroyed console and shards of the game that was still inside fell out, and obviously I was very upset to say the least. A few weeks went by and I finally scraped up some money to buy another console and another copy of Wii Sports. Things were pretty good until I forgot to lock my door again when I was having my regular phone call with my mother. When I finished the phone call, I went back to my room and realized my console was missing. I went to the lounge and that jerk was playing Wii Sports Tennis on my console. Being the introverted and honestly quite scared kid that I was, I kindly asked him if I could have the console back, and wouldn't you guess it, he completely ignored me. After a few minutes of this garbage, I decided, you know what, screw this, and I forcefully unplugged the console and walked off. He got angry and threw the game controller at me, and then tried attacking me again. I ran to the bedroom, locked the door, and asked the caregivers to grab the remote and cables, which they did, only after a long incident where Mike tried throwing bricks through my bedroom window. Thankfully, I moved out a few months later to a foster home after encountering a few more entitled and violent residents. And you know what? I absolutely made sure the console came with me. I still have the console somewhere in storage, but my caseworker can't find it, so I bought another one, which I still play to this day. Wow, I cannot believe that place didn't buy you a new console, or at least force Mike to buy one for you. Like seriously, the caregiver runs in there and restrains you? Like, are they blind? Do they not see this idiot just trashing the place? How could they possibly get that mixed up? Like seriously, you've got to really suck at your job to restrain the wrong kid. Here's this kid trying to protect his property. Meanwhile, Mike's going on this massive rampage for seemingly nothing. Like, that's incredibly inappropriate and so obnoxious in my opinion. So sure, you bought a new one for yourself, but I really think it should have fallen on that care facility to either force Mike to buy a new one for you or to replace it themselves. But overall, I'm glad you don't live in that environment anymore, and hopefully things got better for you in your life, because I can only imagine saving up all that money to buy a console that meant something to you, only to then have some entitled weirdo run in there and destroy it to pieces. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to attend my best friend's wedding after she kicked me out of being her maid of honor? Here's what happened. I'm a 28-year-old female and I'm entangled in a wedding drama of epic proportions. My recently engaged best friend, who's 29, asked me to be her maid of honor, and words can't even describe how happy I was. We've been inseparable since kindergarten, and I was ready to make her big day unforgettable. I spent nearly $700 on her bachelorette party, buying cute outfits for everybody, and renting a party bus where you can drink as much as you want. The other girls pitched in, but I'm the most financially stable, so the majority of it fell on me. I helped plan the wedding of her dreams, right down to contacting the vendors and setting dates when she was too busy. I made the save the date and invitation cards. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that I did a lot for her. And then 2 weeks before the wedding, my best friend asked me to step down and said that her future sister-in-law would be taking the role of maid of honor. I was so angry, and we got into a huge argument over this, where I admittedly said some things I wasn't proud of. Since then, I've received text messages from our friends, as well as best friends of the family, the groom's family, and even the sister-in-law, telling me that I'm a drama queen who needs to get over herself and that it isn't all about me. This has really been getting to me. Now, at this point, I'm just gonna wait and let my emotions cool off, and then try and have a sit down with my friend and talk about this. But honestly, I really need to know, am I the jerk for refusing to attend my best friend's wedding? No, you are not the jerk. You literally spent, what, $700 trying to set up this bachelorette party, as well as literally setting up every aspect of this wedding and its celebration, only to then have her kick you out as the maid of honor? Like, are you kidding me right now? You literally only did that because you were the maid of honor. Like, it really seems like your friend was trying to use you in some kind of way, and that is so unbelievably toxic. Like, seriously, this lady sucks. Who in their right mind would treat a friend like that? You tell them, oh yeah, you're gonna be my maid of honor, don't even worry about it. And once you've done all this planning and prep work and all this other stuff, suddenly they're like, okay, job's done, time for you to leave, you're no longer the maid of honor. Like, I would be angry as well. Like, you literally spend hundreds of dollars on this stupid wedding, only to then not get any of the recognition that you absolutely deserve. And you know what? Anyone who's saying, wow, you're such a drama queen, this isn't about you, those people are idiots. It absolutely is about you. No, the wedding itself is about your best friend, but you getting catapulted out of the way after everything got set up, yeah, that's definitely about you. You did that, nobody else did. So for your best friend who's getting married to do that to you is so unacceptable. So no, once and for all, you are not the jerk here. I would definitely not attend this wedding if I was in your shoes, and if you do end up going through with that, I honestly don't blame you one bit. Am I the jerk for yelling at my sister after she disrespected my chronically ill daughter who only has a few years left to live? Here's what happened. I'm a single mom to Emily. Emily is not her real name, and she is my only child. She's been sick since she was 2 years old, and if I'm going to be honest, she likely won't make it to the age of 10. again. Her dad left us when she got sick. Emily spends 1 week in the hospital and then 1 week at home. Because of this, the last time I was able to send her to school was like 2 years ago. And this is when we were able to do preschool 3 hours a day, 2 times a week. Now, the only time she's around other kids is when she's in a hospital. Emily hates sharing her toys, so I try not to make her do it if I can help it. Usually when she sees her cousins, I'll buy something like a big pack of chalk or a gallon of bubbles, and I will tell her that it's for everybody, but that's the only time that she'll share. My sister and her 2 daughters, ages 5 and 7, are living with us temporarily. It's been difficult for everyone. At first, I switched rooms with Emily, and we put all 3 girls in the master bedroom, but Emily hated sharing rooms and said the girls were always touching her stuff, so we switched back and put the girls in the spare room with their mom. My sister was complaining that the room was too crowded, so she's staying on a cot in my office, but apparently that's also uncomfortable, so she wants the girls to share again. My sister does not pay any rent. Her husband sends $500 a month to help pay for their groceries, and she helps with Emily while I'm working. Thankfully, my job is pretty flexible, so I'm able to watch her while I work. They've also been complaining that I take Emily on day and weekend trips all without them. Emily just spent the week in the hospital, and we came home on Saturday. My niece's beds were moved into Emily's room, and her toys were literally everywhere. I confronted my sister, and she said that Emily isn't using her room or even her toys half the time, and that little girls should be sharing with each other. I told her that Emily has already made it clear that she does not want to share her room or her toys, and that her room needs to be the way we left it by the end of the day. She says I'm being unfair, so I just snapped at her. I said that I would be prioritizing my kid over her ungrateful self and her kids, and that if she can't get over my kid not sharing, she needs to find somewhere else to live. Well, they did end up fixing Emily's room, but they haven't been talking to us. At this point, I'm thinking about kicking them out anyways. So honestly, am I the jerk for freaking out in the way that I did? What should I do? The fact that this lady tried to force her kids into Emily's room and then tried to take all of her toys is honestly so disgusting. You said it best. Emily has maybe 4 years left to live. She is very sick and literally spends half of the year inside the hospital. So you know what? With a kid like that, I honestly would be in the same boat. I would be like, sure, don't share your toys, keep them for yourself, I don't care. Anything that makes you feel happy is honestly okay with me. If we're able to make it around this bend of you being really sick, then sure, we can correct that behavior. But right now, I'm gonna give you everything that I can, which makes sense when it comes to like the day trips and the weekend trips that you go on, as well as your job giving you the flexibility to watch your kid if you need to. So for your sister to act like this is not a big deal and that she can just strong arm her way around this house, in my opinion, is a complete breach of trust, and in my opinion, is more than enough for you to ask her to leave your home. Honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would be under that same thought process, and I'd be like, no, this is not working, she has got to go. And it's not like your sister didn't know about your daughter's boundaries. You made it very clear. She does not want to share her toys, and she wants her room to be just hers. Like seriously, if you can't live by that, then you need to go and figure out another situation. And in my opinion, I really think the fact that you're sticking to your values and these boundaries is also such a good thing for your daughter. Like this shows that her boundaries and her decision making really does matter, and nobody has the right to push you around and make you do anything you don't want to do. So no, you're not the jerk if you decide to kick her out, and honestly, I don't blame you, because your sister's behavior was so unacceptable, and considering the fact that your daughter is already so sick, I don't think it's a bad idea to possibly ask them to leave. Today, I messed up by committing one of the worst acts in the restaurant industry by accidentally spilling an entire tray full of drinks down a woman's back who was celebrating her birthday. And needless to say, I've never been more humiliated in my life. Here's what happened. So for a bit of backstory, I work in fine dining as a server and bartender at a very fancy steakhouse. I worked 60 hours this week with only 1 day off, and one of my early out nights was taken away due to my coworker cutting off the tip of her finger. I was serving this Saturday night, and I came into the shift fueled with anxiety, so I was already off to a bad start. I had a 9 top coming in to celebrate a woman's 60th birthday, and we offer a decoration service, so the entire table was decked out with balloons, candles, special plates and chargers, and even a table runner, so I guess you could say it was very extra. They come from the bar with drinks, and I go over the menu with them immediately. I grabbed orders for second rounds and head right over to the bar. In my mind, I'm trying to get over the anxiety and tell myself that everything is going to run smooth. Well, I was wrong. I was oh so wrong. I I come back to the table with the drinks on my tray, and I bet you can tell exactly where this is heading. This table, of course, is in the tightest spot possible, and I have tiny T-Rex arms. So I'm reaching to give this man his beer, and while I'm doing that, the entire tray of drinks dumps onto the back of this 60-year-old woman. It was humiliating, oh so very humiliating. I still had other tables, and they watched the entire thing. So I composed myself, and I told her that we actually have a hairdryer, and I could get her clothing dry immediately. Thankfully, she was so nice and patient, and I truly was so undeserving of her positive attitude. The only win that came out of all of this was me catching the red wine. Thankfully, the rest of the night ran very smoothly. I'm surprised I did not cry, because I am a sensitive soul and super hard on myself, and I'm hoping that I never do this accidentally ever again. Man, that has got to be like a make or break moment in the restaurant industry. I can literally only imagine that jaw-dropping moment where all the drinks got poured down that poor lady's shirt. Like seriously, either she's gonna freak out and cuss you out, or she's gonna be a sweet woman on her 60th birthday. But thankfully you got the latter, which in my opinion really does not happen in the restaurant industry. From my own personal experience, some customers just act like absolute demons, waiting for you to mess up just so they can jump down your neck. And obviously you didn't throw those drinks on purpose, like it was clearly a mistake and you didn't do it maliciously. And I think any reasonable person like the woman in this story could at least excuse that and say, you know what, accidents happen. So although this sucks, hopefully it never happens again, because the next time you might not get so lucky. Am I the jerk for kicking my daughter out of my house after she disrespected me and her stepmom? Because right now I'm starting to doubt myself, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my daughter is 20 years old and in college. She has a dorm on campus, but she doesn't live there. I love my daughter, but she can be a lot. Drama follows her everywhere, and I was hoping she would grow out of it, but it never really happened. Due to this, she has gone through multiple friend groups, and as she puts it, they are simply just jealous. So she just doesn't have any college friends. Now, I married when she turned 18. I was never married, and her biological mom wasn't in the picture. So this was an adjustment, but I want to make it clear that I did the right steps. I introduced them when I was serious, which was about 2 years into us dating. I spent more time with her. I didn't force them together. We made boundaries for my wife, like punishment comes from me, not her. And when she was struggling, I got her into therapy. She ended up stopping when she hit 18 since I can't make her go. Well, my daughter is making it impossible for them to get along. If my wife tells her the food is ready, she gets angry that my wife is bothering her. And if my wife doesn't tell her, then she gets upset that she wasn't invited. It's contradiction after contradiction. I have talked to her, and my wife has tried to do what she asked, and then she's upset that she did that. I mean, this is literally an impossible situation. Now, here's where my main issue comes into play. My wife's birthday was yesterday. I put out her presents and her cake on the table, and I had to go to work, so I just left it. I came back, and guess what? All her presents were opened, and my daughter was eating a piece of cake. I asked her, why in the world did you do that? And she told me that she doesn't deserve birthday presents. This is when I had had enough, and I told her if she hates her stepmom so much, she can leave this house. I said to her that she has a dorm, and I don't want to see her back at my house until she gives an apology to me and my wife. She then started crying and calling me a jerk. I have been getting a lot of text messages from her, and now I'm doubting my decision. So seriously, am I the jerk for telling my daughter she's got to get lost, all because she constantly puts down my wife? Wow, your daughter is a piece of garbage. Seriously, she is just absolutely out of line. First of all, she has a dorm on campus. She literally has a place to live, so there's literally no reason for her to be sitting around at home while also treating your wife like garbage. Like seriously, there's no good excuse in my opinion. And I mean, look at her behavior. Nothing will ever satisfy her. If your wife does something that your daughter just secretly doesn't like, then she's gonna freak out and treat her like garbage. But if your wife does everything right, your daughter's still gonna treat her like garbage. Like seriously, I can kind of see why she has no friends at college. She is very clearly the toxic one, and I don't blame those people for walking away from her. Now, when it comes to your wife having that birthday and her basically ruining the entire experience, that would be my breaking point as well. Like I can understand this is an adjustment and she's trying to get to know your wife and all that stuff, but this is a clear line in the sand that this disrespect will not be tolerated. So good for you for putting your foot down and saying, you know what, you better apologize or you're not coming back. Because she definitely needs to learn her lesson that she can't talk to you or your wife like that ever again. Would I be be the jerk if I accepted a large sum of money from my biological family, because right now my adoptive family is telling me not to take it. And right now I feel so lost and I seriously don't know what to do. So to start things out, I was adopted as an infant. I never met my biological father or mother, but knew I was adopted from day one. I also know that my biological mother was 15 when she had me, and my biological dad was not much older. My parents have a biological daughter who's my sister, who is in grad school and has student debt, whereas I got a full ride to do my undergrad. This year I took a DNA test to learn about what cultures I belong to and genetics that I have, but also to screen from any genetic diseases. I discovered that I'm predisposed to certain allergies that I didn't know about, and I also discovered several matches. And when I saw the last name, I didn't think anything of it. However, a few weeks ago, I received a phone call from a family law office asking if I really was who I claimed to be, and we ended up speaking for a little bit. I was asked to join a Zoom meeting later on, and when I did, I saw my biological grandmother for the first time and I started welling up. She and I have the same color eyes and I have her nose. I didn't know how cathartic seeing somebody who resembled you felt, and I started to cry right then and there. We chatted for a few minutes before getting down to business. I was shown legal credentials proving that this was a real attorney's office, and I was asked to show some photo ID. I asked what was going on when my grandmother told me the truth. My biological dad is a trust fund baby, and he is very rich. And trust me, as a middle-class person, this was a huge shock. After my biological family found out he had a kid and told nobody about me, they were absolutely furious. My grandmother wants to change over my biological dad's trust over to me. I won't say how much for privacy reasons, but I could live on it for the rest of my life, donate to charity every year, and still have a lot left over. It is major money. My grandmother also said that because she has funds for her other grandchildren, I would receive one of those in addition to my biological dad's trust. She told me that my biological dad is single, and it won't affect anyone but him. She also said she would want to find my biological mother to compensate her as well. The lawyer told me I should obtain a family law attorney and that my biological family would pay for them so I can obtain what my grandmother calls the money I deserve. So I obtained 2 attorneys, one family and one estate, and they are walking me through the process of obtaining the funds. Well, I told my family about it, and they talked about how my sister could finally be a professional student and how their mortgage could be paid off. When I told them how the funds work and how I would be given an allowance every month instead of being a free-for-all, their tune suddenly changed. They said I am their family and should refuse the funds out of principle. I really want to accept the funds and meet and reconnect with my biological family, but I don't want to lose my family while making the decision. So honestly, would I be the jerk for accepting this money from my biological family? I can't believe you're asking this question. Your adoptive family is wrong. You would not be a jerk for accepting this money. Like, I can't believe that your family is not being more supportive. Like, at first they were like, oh man, we're gonna be able to pay off our mortgage and your sister's gonna be a professional student. But once you said there's limitations on how much money you can get out, suddenly they're like, oh yeah, don't accept that money. It's the principle of the matter. When in reality, the only principle here is that they get a cut. They were okay with it until they couldn't get money out of your pocket. I also really don't think it was a good idea to tell your family that at all. Like, I seriously think that was a complete miscalculation, and I really don't think you should have done that. But honestly, with all things considered, I think you would be an absolute fool to not accept that money, because this is a life-changing moment for you, and in my opinion, it would be a complete waste to throw it away, all because of the jaded opinion of your adoptive family. My entitled mother tries to set me up at dinner by surprise inviting my boyfriend over just to then accuse me of cheating on him. Here's what happened. I'm a 20-year-old female and I do art commissions. My boyfriend, who's 22 years old, has always been supportive of my art and even modeled poses I needed for some of my commissions if his body type fit what the client was looking for. We both have a circle of friends we both share. Some of the friends in the circle go to the gym with him, and each of them have their own unique body shape, and they are all very different. Usually, people will commission some of their own characters, but most are characters from animes and stuff like that. Some of his friends have very similar body types to what I'm commissioning for. Every character has their own body type, some thinner, some more muscular, and with our friends' permission, they will do the pose that I ask for them. It's not suggestive or anything like that for either parties. I just use them as references, and this will be very important later on. My mother saw saw me talking to one of our mutual friends, as well as me trying to pose him on FaceTime to get the angle and pose that I needed. However, the only thing she saw was me telling a shirtless man to pose on his knees. So trust me, this was very awkward for all parties. I got the pose that I wanted, and he sent a few photos in that pose with different angles that his girlfriend took. She has been a reference for me a few times, and she and him support me and know it's not anything intimate. Well, my mother called my boyfriend without me knowing out to dinner with us, and I was surprised and happy to have him over for dinner. When he sat down, she asked me if I had anything I'd like to tell him, and at this point, I was so confused. I said that I didn't, but I was happy to have him over anyways. She then got upset and told him to brace himself, and then told him that I cheated on him. He asked her what she meant, and she told him I was on the phone with a man on his knees. And when my mom said that, I honestly was so blown away because I never thought she would ever try to ruin my relationship in this way. After my mom said this, my boyfriend and I just started laughing. My mother asked what was so funny about me being unfaithful to my boyfriend, so I had to explain to her that it wasn't me being unfaithful and how I was having our friend pose for a drawing. When I told her this, she just sat there and apologized profusely. I even called up our buddy to confirm that no, nothing sketchy was going on, and my friend and his girlfriend told her that they have been my personal models for a while. I mean, seriously, how my mom ever forgot that I do this is beyond me. Thankfully, everything is fine now, but honestly, this scenario absolutely blew my mind. Yeah, I think I would lose my mind if my mom tried to set me up and make my significant other think that I was cheating on them. Like, seriously, what was she thinking in that situation? Does she not know that her daughter does art commissions? Like, that has to be obvious at this point, right? I'm willing to bet she has all this like art supplies, and she probably talks about doing commissions constantly. Like, this isn't a new hobby. Like, she's already using like people as references just to try and make sure that she gets the character right. Like, why on earth would you make the assumption, oh my god, she's gotta be cheating? Like, that is such a giant leap in logic, it's not even funny. Like, just imagine for a second if the boyfriend didn't take this situation well. What if he jumped ahead of what was actually happening and made some assumption that was like the opposite of what was actually going on? This original poster's mom literally could have ruined her relationship right then and there. Like, the appropriate thing to do would have been to like pull your daughter aside and be like, hey, who was that guy on his knees on your video chat? And then it could have been cleared up right then and there. But no, instead she decided to take the toxic route and be like, ooh, I'm gonna catch her in her lie. So thankfully this all worked out in the end, because this seriously could have gone really badly. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Today, I messed up by calling for a welfare check on my neighbor, and as a result, the cops have completely kicked in her door, and now I feel so guilty and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Well, I definitely set myself up to get yelled at by my neighbor. My partner and I haven't seen our neighbor in 6 weeks. She lives alone, she's in her 60s, she suffers from emphysema, and is only ever at home. In the 8 years that we've been here, I don't think she's ever been on holiday. We see her on our camera every other day going to her bin or pruning her garden, or we see her lights on when we go for a walk and leave the house. But lately, there's been absolutely nothing. A couple weeks back, I knocked on the door to check and there was no answer. My partner has been telling me to call the police, but I've been reluctant because I know she is Indian and she may have gone to see family abroad or something like that. Well, today I bit the bullet and asked for a welfare check by the police. They tell me to knock on the door again, but I get nothing. I even shout through the letterbox and still nothing. I look through the window and the curtains are open, the lights are off, and you can see through the kitchen, and still there is nobody there. They asked for her name, and unfortunately I don't know it. I just know that she has a daughter who lives away and rarely comes to visit. She gets her shopping delivered, but that's not happened since before we noticed. They say they'll reach out to the hospital to see if they have details and they would send someone around. Well, I hang up and leave after that, and I don't expect anything done that day. Well, midnight, I get a knock on the door. My partner and myself are night owls anyways, so that's fine, and clearly it's the police. I tell them again about the scenario. I tell them about how she has a daughter, and I send them on their merry way, and I assume that they reach out to the next of kin to find out about her. But nope, that is absolutely not what happened. 30 minutes later, they came back and all I hear is a loud boom, and my house was practically shaking from the deep banging of their doorbuster. Now, I hear it 6 more times, and I say to my wife, oh no, it's starting starting now? My other neighbors have kids, so I knew this was gonna wake them up as well. Another 6 times I hear it, and we are wondering why on earth the house is shaking so much. I look out the window and the neighbors' lights are on. I think to myself, great, here's some explaining to the neighbors for tomorrow. There's about 12 more booms, where I notice that they're struggling and they could just go out the back. But after a small pause, I think they're finally in. I check the back window and I see a police officer around the back. They have been hammering the gate that is on my house. So by now, the neighbor is coming to check on what's going on, as well as 2 other neighbors walking up. So I decided to go out and talk with them and the police officer that is telling them what's going on. They are still slamming the door. I mean, it must be about 20 to 30 minutes of bangs by now. The guy is looking tired and he's passing it on to his buddy, who is also looking like he's had better days. The police officer told us anything could have happened, so I was right to call. I said, well, I wasn't expecting you to start knocking the door down at 1 in the morning, and she stated that they had to, as they couldn't leave the scene unchecked, as anyone could be inside, they simply didn't know. So they keep banging on the front door, because the rear entrance to the house is a conservatory, and breaking the door would likely damage the structure. They are there for ages. I mean, this door is the Goliath of doors. It is simply not moving. After another 5 minutes of banging, we all get bored and go back into our homes. And then after another 5 minutes of banging, and the 2 boys in the 2 houses went to look again, there was then another silence. I say to my wife, well, it looks like they finally have gotten in. I then decide to go out the front again and check, and my assumptions were correct. They had flashlights going around room to room, and I suddenly realized that they wouldn't be looking in all the rooms if there was a body. It made me realize that no, she's not in the house and she's probably on holiday. And I think to myself, oh no, she is going to be so angry. The police officer comes out and says, well, she's not in there. So I think to myself, oh no, because now I know what's going to happen. This old lady is on a lovely holiday, seeing friends and family, and her good-for-nothing neighbor has ruined it all, and she can't even get into her own house. She'll return at 1 in the morning to a house that she can't even enter. So I asked them, okay, so what are the next steps? The police officer actually said, well, we're gonna board up the door and the gate. We'll put a notice that we've been here and for her to reach out. I then asked them, okay, but what about the damages? Hoping that it's gonna be covered or I'm gonna get it. They say to me, yeah, we'll cover that. She just needs to call us. So I think to myself, well, that's a relief, but she's not getting a door until after she thinks that she's been robbed. The police officer then hits me with the kicker. He says to me, yeah, we'll try to reach out to her next of kin to see if they have seen her or know where she's at. So now I'm thinking either they didn't bother reaching out to the next of kin or they couldn't get a hold of them. Either way, I've got a lot of explaining to do, and hopefully that conversation doesn't go badly. Yeah, I want to start off first by saying that you are not at fault here. You did not do anything wrong for being worried about your neighbor. It's the cops that rolled up that are absolutely at fault in this situation. Like, it's not even close. Like, seriously, let me get this straight. They didn't think to reach out to any family members or anything like that first. Their first response was, okay, let's kick the door in. Like, what are you doing? This is seriously unbelievable. These cops absolutely suck. There's no way they can just do that and get away with it. I know if I came home, I wouldn't be angry with my neighbor for checking in on me. I'd be upset about the cops kicking my door in. So truly, I would not be hard on yourself. I think it's completely fine that you were checking in, and if anything, you can point the finger at these stupid cops for kicking her door in, because you never asked for them to do that. And in my opinion, that is a complete unnecessary escalation that they very easily could have avoided. Am I the jerk for not inviting my stepsister to my wedding after she accused me of trying to steal her thunder by planning my wedding date close to when she was gonna have her baby shower? Here's what happened. So I got engaged to my longtime partner by the name of Matt. Matt is not his real name. We were thrilled to start planning our wedding. We decided to have a small, intimate ceremony with close friends and family. Among the potential guests was my stepsister by the name of Emily. Emily is also not her real name. We don't have a great relationship, but I didn't want to create any unnecessary drama, so I intended to invite her and her husband. The issue began when I shared our wedding date with the family. Emily immediately reacted negatively, saying our wedding was too close to her planned baby shower, which was scheduled for the following month. She accused me of stealing her thunder by having my wedding so close to her event. I was shocked by her response because we had never discussed her baby shower date, and I couldn't have known about it when we chose our wedding date. I tried to explain this, but Emily insisted that I should have somehow known and adjusted our plans to accommodate her. The tension escalated when Emily called a family meeting to discuss my selfishness in planning my wedding near her baby shower. more. During the meeting, she accused me of being inconsiderate and trying to overshadow her life events. The rest of our family members seemed torn, with some taking her side and others understanding my perspective. In the end, I felt like I was being treated unfairly and that Emily was making unreasonable demands. So I made the difficult decision to not invite her to our wedding, fearing that her presence would only add stress and tension to our special day. Now our family is divided, and some family members are angry at me for not inviting Emily. She continues to claim that I'm the one being selfish and unreasonable. So honestly, I need to know, am I the jerk for not inviting my stepsister to my wedding after she accused me of trying to steal her thunder? What should I do? Okay, I do not think you're the jerk at all. Your stepsister sounds unbelievably entitled. Like seriously, what is her problem? She is actually walking around here being like, wow, my baby shower is more important than your wedding. Like seriously, lady? No, it's not. You can move your baby shower date, no problem. They have a wedding venue that they probably rented out, and they have potential family members traveling from out of state just to show up to this wedding. They can't just change their wedding date out of nowhere. Like when that date is announced, that's exactly when it's gonna happen. Like your stepsister could easily push the date of her baby shower to the next week if she really wanted to. Like these two events are not even close to being the same thing. Also, your stepsister is unbelievably petty. Does she really need to call a family meeting because of your selfishness, saying you're trying to steal her thunder and how you're just being unreasonable? Like seriously, this lady has some issues, and she clearly wants everything all the time to be about her. So no, you're not the jerk. And you know what? I don't blame you for uninviting her, because based on the way she's acting right now, you can bet she was gonna try and make some kind of problems at your wedding. So I don't blame you for taking that step, and anyone who doesn't like the fact that your selfish stepsister has been kicked out of your wedding, then they can either deal with it or they can just not show up. Am I the jerk for not making game nights in my store a child-free event? Because at this point, I'm starting to get some complaints and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 35-year-old male and I own a game store and hold board game or D&D night at least 3 times a week. I have a few tables set up in the back so people can come in and play games, along with a small kitchen that is really just a fridge, a microwave, a sink, and a cupboard, so people can have some snacks and drinks while playing. One of the regular groups have been playing D&D in my store on a weekly basis for the past 3 years, and I've sometimes joined them as a guest player, and it has always been great fun. About a year ago, they had to find a new DM because their usual DM didn't have the time to dedicate to preparing campaigns any longer. While they were looking, they still came in weekly, but just played regular board games instead. Now, about a few months ago, this 10-year-old girl by the name of Emma showed up with her mother at one of the game nights. Emma is obviously not her real name. According to her mother, Emma had been spending months making all kinds of materials for playing Dungeons & Dragons, but didn't know anyone who would play with her, so her mother wondered if it was okay for her to ask at my store if anyone would be willing to play. The regular group was more than happy to join in for a session, and it ended up going so well, they asked Emma to DM for them regularly if she wanted to. Fast forward to now, and Emma is DMing 2 days a week, one time for the regular group and one time for one-off sessions with other people to jump in if they want to. I swear this girl is a genius. She has memorized the entire player's handbook and monster guide, and made a fully homebrew campaign that's genuinely fun and exciting, though sometimes also surprisingly dark. Now, here's where the problem starts to come into play. A few other people have started complaining about there being a child on game nights, saying the reason they're playing here is because they have children at home. Now that Emma is also coming to game nights, they feel like they can't play games as they usually do because they keep having to think about whether their language or jokes are inappropriate for the presence of a child. I told them that I never said anything about providing a child-free space, so I won't be banning Emma from coming, while also saying that I'm sorry if they don't like it. But I also said they're welcome to plan their nights on days where Emma isn't there, or find a different place to play. I did tell Emma's mother that Emma is only allowed to be here as long as one of her parents is also present, and that just comes back to common sense because I'm not taking that risk. So honestly, am I the jerk for not banning children from game nights and telling people to just basically suck it up? What should I do? I don't think there's anything wrong with having a kid involved in your Dungeons & Dragons game, and I think you're going about it in the right way. As long as her parents are here, then there's no problem. It sounds like this Emma girl is a really good kid. She doesn't seem like a problem or anything like that, and I honestly don't think it's a problem in that regard. But I do have to say I completely understand where the other adults in the room are coming from. I like joking with my friends and making stupid jokes when kids aren't around. I like just being an adult and letting loose and letting my hair down. So when a 10-year-old girl is sitting at the table, it kind of hinders your ability to be vocal about what's going on, and it stops any kind of progress in the game. So I do see exactly where they're coming from. So while I do think it's a good idea to be welcoming of anybody who wants to come in and play the game, I also think it would be a good idea to make sure there's a specific space that adults can have fun and play Dungeons & Dragons without a kid being present. I really do think there is some kind of middle ground that can be found, and I think this will benefit both you and the rest of the store if some kind of mutual agreement can be made. Am I the jerk for telling my stepsister's son the honest truth, which is something that she did not want me to tell him? Here's what happened. When I was 7 years old, I lost my dad, and my mom remarried when I was 9 years old, and my stepsister was 12 at the time. We had very different experiences with the whole blending of the families. I didn't really want it to happen and wasn't exactly looking to make them my new dad and sister. I mean, they never really became that either, but I have accepted that they are family. With my stepsister, her mom chose not to be in her life, and she always longed for a family where she had a mom and maybe some other siblings. It made us all living together very uncomfortable, with me and her wanting very different things, and her dad and my mom really unhappy with how I felt about us becoming a real family, as they would put it. We're all okay now, we're not so close, but no hate or animosity is there anymore. At least it was hidden until this. So my sister married when she was 20 years old and had her son then too. She lost her husband 2 years ago, and her son is now 9. My stepsister has met a man who's a widower, and he has 2 kids under 3. They are trying to get to the point where they move in together, but her son is not really blending with them, which is how she said it. He's not unkind or rude, but he's not really making an effort is how she views it, and he has said that he doesn't want to be a part of the new family that she wants. They decided to go away for the weekend together and see if that would be a good experience and whether it would help them bond. She said her son ignored when the 3-year-old wanted to hold his hand, and then he didn't want to sit with her partner, who was also looking at the stars on their first night there. He also didn't want to take any photos with any of them. So she decided I needed to talk to him as someone who also lost my dad. She said the adult me could give him a more mature insight into everything. So I told her that I would talk to him, but I would not read from a script, with her telling me to just be honest. Well, I did talk to her son. I assured him that how he was feeling was okay, and that I had felt the same way. I told him it was okay for his feelings to change, and I answered that mine hadn't really. They had instead just softened, so I could like them as people, even if they weren't my dad and my sister. Well, he liked hearing that, and he said he really did believe that would be how he'd feel, and I assured him that it was okay. He was honest with how he just didn't feel the way his mom wanted to, and I related with him on that. Well, my stepsister did not like that, and a couple days later she was calling to cuss me out and saying that I didn't help her like I said I would. She told me her son was more sure now that he did not want to try and be a family with them, and she told me I was so selfish to ruin her life the way I had ruined my mom's. I told her my concern was with her son and how he was doing, but she told me I could get lost. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Honestly, it really seems like you were trying to help this kid out. I don't think anything you could have said or done would have changed that kid's mind. He clearly does not like this new family, and there's nothing anybody can do about that besides him. You didn't push him over the edge or validate anything that he feels. You just gave an honest take on what's actually happening around him, and that is not a bad thing in my opinion. I think it's a good thing because you have a good viewpoint on what is happening in this kid's life. And for your stepsister to be acting this way is so inappropriate. She's trying to blame her son's actions on you. But you know what? This is not your fault. No one can force that kid to feel any way that he doesn't want to feel. So honestly, I don't think you're the jerk here. I think the way your stepsister is acting is completely uncalled for, and it's absolutely unacceptable for her to blame something on you that you absolutely didn't do. Today, I messed up by falling for a fake job scam and losing $3,000 out of my banking account. And now I feel so embarrassed and angry and incredibly frustrated. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I want to start this off by saying that this happened 2 weeks ago. I got laid off from a job in the middle of September, and I have been struggling to find work. I've got my resume revamped and been working with career coaches, but nothing seems to be helping with it. After my final resume was returned to me, I began sending off applications, and within a day or two, I got an email that a company wanted to interview me for a possible remote position. And when I saw this, I was so excited. I was so happy that the service worked with the career coaches, and that all I needed to do was buff up my resume resume. For the past 5 years, I've had an hour commute each way, and then another 3 years of doing 45 minutes before that. Remote work at this point sounded like a dream come true. A few days later, they send me an interview packet. It's a questionnaire in lieu of a panel interview. A little strange, but not unheard of. All the questions were legit questions, and the technical ones were very technical. Some companies understand that asking someone to come up with the optimal solution right on the spot and under pressure makes them miss out on good candidates that are just awkward in those situations. This was a mathematician role, so it goes doubly true. I spent the next day working on the interview packet and forwarding drafts to my career coach to make sure that I wasn't sabotaging myself by being too honest, as I'm not a great salesman and I'm open about things I struggle with, instead of claiming I was some kind of amazing employee. The coach said everything checked out, and that after a few revisions, I had a pretty good interview packet, so I proceeded to send it off. Well, a few days later, I get the congratulations email, and I'm ecstatic. I finally have a job doing something I like, and I get to do it in my pajamas. I accept the offer, and the next day they send me the offer letter and ask me to sign. I review the contract closely, as I'm a paranoid person, and so far it seemed a little bit strange that I haven't talked to anybody on the phone. The contract has all the right logos and address, the pay is well within the range of the job, and everything passes my personal checks. So I sign the document and I send it back. The next day, they send me a check for $5,000 for work equipment, and my boss gets in contact with me to set up my training and explaining the day-to-day process to me and getting a feel for where my coding skills are currently at. And again, this is not out of the ordinary. I've had jobs that have sent me checks before for relocation and equipment, but just because I'm paranoid, I do some due diligence. And boy, do I wish I had done that sooner. The domain name for the email address of the HR person looks legit. No tricky characters or misspelled letters. The person I'm emailing is the actual HR person at this company, and my boss is an actual manager at the company as well. The check has the right watermark and addresses on it. It is signed by the actual CEO of the company. I mean, everything is checking out. My boss tells me I need to use their vendor to order the computer, as well as anything else that might come along with the computer. The first blatant red flag popped up here for me, but the vendor site looked legit, and it was a 10% discount off of MSRP for the equipment that they wanted me to have. So I sent $2,000 to the vendor. The order goes through, and I breathe a bit easier now, comfortably believing I have a job, and that this is not a scam, which is where they wanted me. I'm buttered up and my brain is smoothed out. The location of the company was Eastern time zone, and I live in Mountain Time, so the next morning I woke up at the respectable unemployed hour of 10 o'clock in the morning to a series of text messages and emails from 7 o'clock in the morning saying that they're trying to get a hold of me and they need me to send $1,000 to the vendor for some additional equipment. Now, if you've ever been desperately unemployed, then you know that occasionally you do some dumb stuff in hopes of a job. You know, stuff like accepting lower pay, taking something that you're overqualified for, or in my case, worried that they're going to fire me before I even get started. So half asleep, I send another $1,000, but my idiot self can tell something is up now. A couple of hours later, they try to get me to send more money, and I tell them that I hit my card limit for the day and I couldn't spend any more. So they then asked me to do something that I honestly never expected. They asked me to go to a Bitcoin ATM just so I could send them Bitcoin. At that point, my heart sank, and I realized that not only was I getting scammed, but that I was also out $3,000, which is money I need to survive as an unemployed person. I start reviewing everything and notice that I've literally been strung along this entire time as if I'm in the game BioShock. As I scroll through the messages, the amount of times they strung me along suddenly leapt out to me. I mean, how could I be so stupid? I decided to keep these guys going for a while instead of immediately calling them out. I figured if they're wasting time on me, then they can't use it on someone else. Meanwhile, I went on LinkedIn and found the cybersecurity manager and hit him up asking him what's going on. I end up talking to one of the managers that confirmed that it was indeed a scam, that I had a real check that belonged to the company, and that all the documents were real, but it just wasn't real for me. I then call up my bank and I'm filing for fraud and making a police report. Obviously, there isn't much they can do for me, but there's always a chance that a scam this elaborate could be undone by them not using spoof numbers. As we come to a close of my lengthy tale, I do have some relatively good news. I have gotten back the $1,000 I sent out. I have no idea what happened to the other $2,000, and I'm definitely not holding my breath, but it's something. If you've ever been scammed before, I can now tell you that it is one of the worst feelings. You feel feel dumb, embarrassed, angry, and ashamed. You feel afraid and so many other emotions. I've always said that everybody is vulnerable to at least one scam. And you know what? I finally found mine. I'm lucky to have a supportive wife who hasn't yelled at me yet somehow about being dumb, and at least I can talk to my dad about how much this sucks. So the moral of the story is that everybody is vulnerable. And if you're shaking your head right now saying, no, that could never happen to me, well, guess what? This especially can happen to you. So it's better for you to stay safe and stay smart so that you don't fall for scams in the way that I did. Wow, what a crazy situation. If I lost $2,000 just like that, I think I would lose my mind. Like, first of all, the fact that they're scamming people who are looking for jobs, that is such a disturbing thing to do to somebody, and it's honestly just so unfair. Because then you run into people like the original poster, where they are literally desperate for a job. They're trying their best to stay afloat and not miss out on all the money they could be earning. They only have a couple $1,000s to their name, and they are literally just trying to make ends meet. So when they think they have this big job and they're doing exactly what these people say, it can be very easy to fall for this kind of stuff. I mean, I'm pretty sure if I was in this original poster's shoes, I might have fallen for this too. I really think it can happen to anybody if you're not careful. So sure, this is a mess up to a degree, but at least now you know exactly what to look out for in the future. But it honestly just really sucks that you had to learn this the hard way. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled military veteran demands that we stay behind for a special event, claiming that he is more than qualified to take care of this hyperactive 7-year-old kid. So we decide to maliciously comply and literally watch this man fall apart at the seams, unable to control this child who was clearly never going to listen. Here's what happened. So this happened years ago with myself, a friend, my then boyfriend, and his daughter. We couldn't do much for toys for this particular Christmas, but our family was nominated for an event called Shop with a Veteran. It's where kids go to a Walmart with a veteran and can pick out their own Christmas gifts with a set amount of money donated by civilians and other veterans. The thing is, only the veteran can go in with them. I had later found out it was because some parents had earlier tried to persuade their kids to get things that were more catered to parents or another child instead of the child who was nominated. I can definitely understand the rule being enforced for this, but some children should have their parent with them pretty much regardless. My boyfriend's daughter was diagnosed with severe ADHD and had taken her medication, but she had gotten very excited when she found out about going to get Christmas gifts of her choosing. We found the lady hosting and explained to her about the daughter's ADHD and how she can be a whirlwind when she gets excited, and how she doesn't like to listen to people she doesn't know. When we explained to the lady hosting the event that one of us really should go in with his daughter just to make sure she behaved, she understood and talked to the veteran who was going to shop with the daughter. We immediately argued, claiming he was tired of parents wanting to pressure their kids to getting things they didn't want, and he wanted the daughter to have a good time picking out her gift. The lady tried to explain the situation, but the veteran wouldn't hear any of it. I clearly remember him grumbling at us. He said to us, "I've been to war, I can handle a kid." So I thought to myself, okay, you're gonna get exactly what you want. After the veteran took the daughter into the store, we saw two friends going in, and we didn't know that they would be there, but we were happy to see them nonetheless. Well, my boyfriend caught up with them and asked one of them if they could keep an eye on the daughter and the veteran. My boyfriend then emphasized that the veteran clearly thought he could handle his daughter, so they should just let him handle her. We waited for about an hour when the veteran returned with the daughter. She was grinning ear to ear with all the presents that she was able to get, and the veteran looked exhausted and like he had been through an absolute nightmare and back. He then yelled at us that the daughter was the most disrespectful brat he had ever met, how she just had to touch all the toys and threw everything she wanted into the shopping cart, and she was a nightmare when he told her she couldn't have everything she picked out. Well, my boyfriend packed his daughter's gifts in the car and then took her back inside to start our grocery shopping. We couldn't do it while she was in there with a veteran because we had to wait outside for when they were done, so we could immediately take her and her gifts, which is understandable, they weren't babysitters after all. I decided to talk to the veteran and told my boyfriend that I'd meet him inside. I asked him if he was okay, and he said that he was fine, but then asked us why didn't we tell him that our daughter was crazy. I promptly corrected him by saying that she was not crazy. I explained her ADHD to him and how we only wanted to go in with them so that she would behave. We know that she knows to behave around us, at school, and at grandma's house. We explained how she doesn't like to listen to strangers, even if we know them and she doesn't. I apologized surprised and told him that not all parents want to go in to use this as some kind of excuse to get their own gifts. Some genuinely just want to make sure their kids are behaving. Later in the store, our friend caught up with us and told us everything that happened. The daughter had run up and down the toys aisles. She kept going back and forth from the toys to the cart, throwing in anything that she could get her hands on. She even screamed at the veteran when he put some toys back, which is typical behavior when her normal authority figures aren't watching. When she was satisfied with the toy she did get, she kept asking for candy at the checkout, which is something she asks of pretty much anyone when we go to the store. It was amusing to us that a grizzled military veteran was outmatched by a hyperactive 7-year-old. We have since then been much better off, and we donate money to this event every year, and even toys for any toy drive they have. The veteran still does the event, but he's more understanding when certain children need their parents to go with them. He does get the odd, pushy parent every now and then, but now he handles them, rather than flat out denying all parents from ever going in. Yeah, that's what I like to call someone not knowing what they're getting into. Like seriously, if the parents are literally coming to you and being like, wait a second, we really should be present for when she goes into that store, that's probably a clear sign that yeah, I should probably listen to them and put my pride on the back burner so that I can have something to work with here. Because clearly this girl was like absolutely obnoxious. She was running all over the place, throwing toys in the basket left and right. She was acting like a kid who clearly had ADHD. And I also echo the way the original poster felt. I find it hilarious that this guy thought he could handle this child. So good for you for maliciously complying, because this guy clearly was not going to get it. And at least now it seems like he's learned a very valuable lesson about letting parents come along if they really request it. My entitled boss constantly screams at their staff anytime they even walk in the building, demanding that they work right away. So I decided to set up a resistance, coordinating with everybody in the office to only show up right when we were supposed to clock in. And I've never felt more satisfied to get back at this boss in a really subtle way. Here's what happened. I used to work in a trade shop run by a great boss everybody got along great with. That is, except for one very specific department head. Let's call them Bumblebee. For reasons that are unrelated to this story, the boss decided to sell the shop to Bumblebee, and in the wake, the majority of the staff quits within months, leaving us completely understaffed. I naively decided to stick it out and assumed that Bumblebee would hire people to fill the empty positions. But guess what? They didn't do that. We go from a 15-person trade shop all the way down to 5 people within a year, and that includes the 6 people who turned over. One of the many issues that developed, and trust me, there were many, was Bumblebee's inability to schedule or think through actions to the end and just plan ahead. While I worked there, which was about 2 years with the original boss, I often came in 10 to 15 minutes early due to the nature of my commute. I'd come in, unload my stuff, make some coffee, small talk with the coworkers, have some small talk with my boss, but we never really started work until everybody's scheduled start time. When Bumblebee took over, the moment you stepped into the shop, they immediately started to bark orders at you, regardless if you were in the building 15 to 20 minutes early. Now at this point, I'm the most senior, and I'm the person left at the shop from the old regime, and when I would point out that we technically were not on the clock yet for another 15 to 20 minutes, and that I want to make some coffee, Bumblebee would just snap at you, telling you to do it now because so-and-so is coming right at opening. So I started to wait in my car, bringing coffee from home, and would only walk in the door as the last minute was changing. I was technically never late to work, and was ready to work the moment I stepped through the door. I don't know if Bumblebee caught on, but the rest of the staff did and followed suit, especially because I told them to. For the remaining months I lasted there, all my coworkers would still often show up early to work, but all would wait in the vehicle, and at some point one of them had a minivan and we all would just party in there, with all of us eventually going in as a group. Anytime a new person joined the staff, because someone always walked off, we would also warn them of what was happening. Well, it's been several years since I worked there, and I don't know any of the current staff besides Bumblebee. I happened to be doing an on-site install nearby at the time that the shop would be open, and I looked over in the parking lot in front of the shop, and just like clockwork, a minute before the shop was scheduled to open, about 6 people got out of their vehicles and headed in. Now, I may not work there any longer, but it's nice to see that my resistance is still going on. Honestly, this is really the best way to go about doing this. It's bad enough when you have a manager who just sucks at their job and can't even schedule people properly or on time. Like seriously, what's up with that? But you also have a manager who is very clearly a hothead. I mean, they were barking orders at you the second you walked in the door. Like seriously, I came in early to to have a cup of coffee and try and gather my thoughts. I didn't step in the building to then start working off the clock. Like seriously, don't try and make people work off the clock. Give people a second to gather their thoughts and try and have some semblance of happiness for their job that day. But you know what? With all things considered, I personally think the way the original poster went about doing this was really smart. They didn't technically break any rules, but they did decide, you know what, we're not going to take this any longer. And so they literally started a resistance to be like, no, we're not going to work until we have to clock in. And honestly, with all things considered, I think that's a great idea, and it's really funny to see that that tradition is still ongoing. My boyfriend's house is absolutely disgusting, and now after visiting and experiencing this disgusting environment, I'm now reconsidering my entire relationship with my boyfriend, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I've been seeing and dating this guy since July, and things have been going really good. It's a long distance situation, but we've managed to see each other at least once a month. So far, he's been kind and thoughtful, and no major red flags were detected on my end. Well, that is until recently. The first time I flew out to visit him, I decided to stay at an Airbnb since we were getting to know each other, and I wanted my own space. The trip went super well, and I had an amazing time. Last week, I went back and he invited me to stay with him this time. He lives with his brother and dad, but his dad was away, so it made sense and I agreed. When I got to his house, it was late and dark, so I didn't notice much other than a weird smell. They have 3 dogs and live on an island, so I figured that had something to do with it. When I woke up, I started to notice the house was pretty dirty. Things were scattered everywhere, the bathroom had dog hair and dirt, and overall it looked like it hadn't been kept up in quite a while. Now, I tried to look past it since there are 2 guys living there and I kept a positive attitude. Nobody gave me any rundown about the situation or apologized for the mess, but I figured his dad might have a small hoarding problem of some sort. On the second day, I started to notice even more things. The dogs don't get walked, so they go to the bathroom inside the house and in the laundry area that's right by the kitchen. They only get let out to the side yard from time to time, and the dogs have to pass by the bathroom to get to it, which explains why there's so much hair and paw prints and dirt all over the place. I even started feeling uncomfortable showering there because I didn't feel like I was in a clean environment, and I feel terrible for the animals. Then, a really awful smell that almost made me throw up appeared from the laundry area. He mentioned it, and I asked him what he thought it was, and he said it was puke from the dogs, but he couldn't see where it was coming from. The day after, he wanted to invite his friends over to hang out, so I told him he'd have to clean up that smell at the very least before they arrived. He told me that he would if he had the time, and I started to feel even more disgusted than before. Well, he didn't have enough time for the next day, and his brother and him figured it was a great idea to burn cantaloupe incense right before their friends came in just to try and mask the smell. They were hanging out on the table right by the smell the entire time they were there. At this point, I was beyond grossed out. I spoke to him about it, as well as the mess and the lack of urgency to clean up the smell, and he said that staying on top of cleaning with the dogs was an uphill battle, and he had to some degree just given up on even trying to keep things clean. He also told me that he doesn't plan on living like that once he lives on his own and will not be getting any pets. As for the smell, he told me that he didn't think that it was puke and thought it might be some sort of animal or rodent and didn't want to clean it up and find something in front of me, so he brushed it off as much as he could just so he could get to it after I left. I told him I would have rather seen whatever it was and saw that there was at least some initiative on his part to clean it up right then and there, as opposed to letting me think that it's not a priority to live in a clean space. I feel weird because cleanliness is very important to me, and I just can't imagine what I experienced. I do not want, nor could I live like that in the future, and I kind of want to end it, but he is a great guy in all other respects, so now I'm honestly at such a loss and I seriously don't know what to do. The way your boyfriend is living is absolutely disgusting. Like, he is letting the dogs go to the bathroom inside the house, he's letting these smells and the awful mess just pile up, and he has no initiative to try and take care of it like right away, or even in like, I don't know, the next hour or so. Like, this guy is super lazy, and trust me when I say this, I am right there with you. How can anybody live that way? That seriously is so disgusting it's not even funny, and I really think it's wise of you to identify this as a massive red flag. And here's the thing, I don't believe this guy for a second when he's like, oh yeah, I'm not gonna live like this when I have my own place. It's like, buddy, yes you absolutely are. If you're willing to let this slide in this kind of environment, then you're absolutely gonna let that slide in another environment. environment. Claiming you're not going to do that in a new place, all without any kind of evidence to back that up, in my opinion, is just a straight up lie. Like, he couldn't even hire like a cleaning service to do a deep clean all day, like even while he's at work or something like that. I mean, it might be expensive, but good lord, it's better than what they're living in right now. So honestly, I don't blame you for reconsidering this relationship, because this guy lives like an absolute slob, and that, in my opinion, is absolutely unacceptable. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.